Chapter 4388. Of course, after the Golden Rock's humiliation and anger, fear appeared in his eyes. What could make the most powerful expert of the demon race so afraid? However, the number of pitch black holes increased, and the suction force became stronger. Not only were the light pillars of the stars and moons sucked into them, but even the mountains and other objects on the ground were also torn apart by the suction force. Everything was sucked into the hole. It was not that there were no battles between great saints of the demon race, but they had never been so intense. The faint darkness from before had now begun to spread, and the Golden Rock felt that the stars in his demon body were about to be torn apart. He did not dare to be careless and hurriedly withdrew his divine ability. The three doppelgangers merged into one. However, without Feng Wu's cooperation, the darkness did not decrease at all. In fact, it even seemed to be swarming toward the Golden Rock. Seventh Great Saint. The Golden Rock was frightened and hurriedly shouted, "You and I are both great saints of the demon race. We were born from the same root. Why are you so anxious to kill each other? Moreover, you are a great saint and have yet to enter the Great Sage Hall. You don't know how powerful this star-swallowing power is. Look, if you and I don't stop, the entire Bai Qingyu, or even the entire Thousand Demons sacred realm, may be swallowed by this unknown thing." In fact, even before the golden-winged great rock spoke, Feng Wu had already sensed the power of the pitch-black darkness. He also wanted to stop, but this battle was started by the three demonic saints. How could he stop so easily? Now, hearing the golden-winged rock take the initiative to speak, Feng Wu took the opportunity to slowly retract the power of the stars and said in a loud voice, "Taoist Master Shao is this saint's good friend. If you attack Taoist Master Shao, you are attacking this saint. As long as Taoist Master Shao does not agree to stop, this saint will not stop." Seeing that Feng Wu had withdrawn the star-swallowing power, the Golden Rock understood that Feng Wu wanted to stop. He smiled faintly and replied, "Seventh Great Saint, you are a great saint of the demon race. Why are you siding with outsiders? You are joining forces with a human Mahayana realm cultivator to attack a great saint of my race? I could not have become a great saint without perfected Zhao's help. This sage has already made a demon oath when I became a sage. As long as Taoist Master Shao has any orders, this sage will not hesitate to die 10,000 times." Feng Wu naturally understood the tactic of giving a carrot after a stick. Therefore, Feng Wu replied very seriously, "Of course, this sage is the great sage of the demon clan. Naturally, I have to think of the demon clan. I came out now because I don't want things to get out of hand. If Rock Sage has the heart, this sage can naturally plead with Taoist Master Shao." The golden-winged rock had just obtained benefits from Xiaohua, and now it saw Feng Wu come out of Xiaohua's Kunlun wonderland. How could it not understand the difficulties that Feng Wu mentioned? He looked meaningfully at Feng Wu, then turned to Xiaohua. At this moment, Xiaohua was still standing with his hands in his sleeves, looking so innocent and harmless. The great golden-winged rock only pondered for a moment, and the stars grew dimmer. He smiled and said, "If you want to talk about help, I also received spiritual Master Zhao's help by chance. Based on this matter alone, this sage cannot be ruthless to Taoist Master Shao. Don't you think so, Taoist Master Shao?" Xiaohua narrowed his eyes, looked at the golden-winged rock, and then looked at the collapsing earth and space. He nodded and said, "Rock Sage knows how to repay kindness. As expected of the number one expert of the demon clan. I am not as good as you. Fellow Taoist Feng Wu, thank you for your help. You are a trustworthy person. I will not force you to attack your fellow clansmen." "Thank you, Taoist Master Shao." Feng Wu was overjoyed. He spread his wings, and the power of the stars was also about to be retracted. Unfortunately, the power of the two stars was already entangled in one place. How could Feng Wu retract it as he wished? Seeing that he could not retract the power of the stars, and the darkness increased, Feng Wu was anxious and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, help me!" Seeing Feng Wu anxious, how could Xiaohua not know that the situation was critical? He activated his magic power without hesitation. Hundreds of thunderbolts fell like horned dragons, trying to separate the power of the stars. Unfortunately, wherever the thunderbolts fell, the darkness would tear and devour them. There was no effect at all. At this moment, the celestial roared. 3 pillars of light soared into the sky and pounced straight down. These pillars of light were so dazzling that even the seemingly unparalleled darkness was temporarily covered up at this moment. Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. We will help you. Seeing that the celestial's light pillars could not stop them, Wenchu and Taoist which hurriedly abandoned the 5-colored sea god shell and the flying feather void beast and flew over. The 2 of them activated their divine abilities, and the 5 chi thunder and 3 corpse yin thunder struck out at the same time. Good. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. With a thought, the 9 heavens divine thunder also waved. The 3 types of thunderbolts landed in one place and condensed into a bright and transparent thunderbolt. This thunderbolt's transparency corresponded to the darkness in the sky. When it landed, it wiped out a small part of the darkness. Now that the darkness was reduced, the 2 entangled powers of the stars immediately loosened. The Feng Wu hurriedly withdrew the power of the stars, and the brilliance of the stars that appeared dimmed a little. The golden-winged roc did not dare to be negligent and also withdrew the power of the stars. The brilliance of the stars that he manifested also dimmed a little. Just like this, Xiao Hua, Wenchu, and Taoist which worked together to activate the thunderbolts. The golden-winged roc and the Feng Wu tacitly withdrew the power of the stars bit by bit. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, all the darkness was wiped out. Phew! Not to mention Xiao Hua, even the golden-winged roc heaved a long sigh of relief. Behind him, the 5-colored sea god shell and the flying feather void beast also recovered their demon forms. They looked on with some trepidation. Their previous intention to injure Xiao Hua had long been thrown out of the window. Furthermore, when the Feng Wu withdrew the star patterns, her phoenix eyes flashed sharply and glanced at the 3 great sages. The 3 great sages of the demon clan were shocked and couldn't help but retreat slightly. After all, they were not facing a human Mahayana realm cultivator, but the Feng Wu Taoist which, Wenchu, the celestial being, and Xiao Hua, who were all at the 9th level of essence chi. In the sky beside Xiao Hua, 36 scattered nascent soul cultivators who were also at the 9th level of essence chi were also eyeing covetously. The 3 great sages of the demon clan couldn't help but feel bitter. They really didn't dare to believe that if Xiao Hua harbored evil intentions, the 3 of them would not be able to escape unscathed. The Feng Wu spread her wings and withdrew the star patterns, but didn't withdraw her demon form. Even the celestial being didn't withdraw the white bones. The golden-winged roc's heart tightened. He also didn't dare to withdraw his demon form and only raised his voice. In my opinion, with Taoist Zhao's ability, it would be as easy as flipping his hand if he wanted to wipe Bai Qingyu out of the 1,000 demons' sacred realm. Therefore, it's unlikely that Taoist Zhao would do as Bai Qingyu said and scheme so much. Bai Qingyu is just a misunderstanding. Xiao Hua knew that this was the time to reconcile. Moreover, from what the golden-winged roc said, they didn't know about Bai Qingyu's scheme. He slightly frowned and nodded. That's right. Sage Roc is right. The so-called war between humans and demons is purely Bai Qingyu's nonsense. I'm not interested in such a war at all. If that's the case, Demon King Peng Jun of the Sky Concealing Ridge colluded with Demon King Bai Qingyu to offend a great sage friend of the demons. They intended to provoke a war between great sages. The Sky Concealing Ridge was just one of the many territories in Zhang Yuetian's eyes. It was really insignificant. In order to appease Xiao Hua's anger, the golden-winged roc didn't mind abandoning this little pawn. After the golden-winged roc finished speaking, he looked at the 5-colored seashell and the flying feather void beast and asked, "What do the 2 great sages think?" Hee. The flying feather void beast smiled faintly. "Since it has nothing to do with the war, I won't interfere. An Ai Quan of the ancient Bell Mountain also sent a false message to my Xian space forest. His crime is also punishable. If wiping out the ancient Bell Mountain can appease Taoist Zhao's anger, I think it's worth it. However, this was all caused by Bai Qingyu. What do you think, Sage Roc? I, Bai Qingyu, have already been killed by Taoist Zhao. Demon King Bai Qing has also been captured by him. What else can I say? The five-colored seashell's tone didn't have the gentleness of the other two great sages. Rather, it carried a kind of resentment. However, I'm really confused. Why would Bai Qing provoke the humans for no reason? I've never seen Bai Qingyu's message and don't know what happened to her. Moreover, when she saw us just now, Bai Qing was actually twisting words and forcing logic? Oh, I see. Hearing the five-colored seashell's words, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel relieved. This was because he had only learned about Shui Mingzi's goal from Ao Sheng and the ancient Bell Mountain's goal from Shui Mingzi. He actually didn't know about Demon King Bai Qingyu's goal or the sky-concealing ridge's goal. From the words of the two great sages, Xiaohua felt that the golden-winged rock shouldn't know about it, while the sky-concealing beast should know some inside information. However, the five-colored seashell, who should know the truth, actually said some inexplicable words, as if it didn't know anything. There could only be one truth. All of this was a scheme of the three demon kings, and it had nothing to do with the three great sages. Thinking of this, Xiaohua nodded slightly and said, "Sage Rock, you don't need to say more. I don't know the truth of this matter either. When I release the three demon kings, you'll know when you ask them. Moreover, I also want to know where the one suppressed by Bai Qingyu went. If the great sages agree to my conditions, it's not impossible to turn hostility into friendship." But the five-colored seashell also had some doubts and replied, "If Bai Qing really offends you too much?" Boom. At this moment, under the ground that was previously torn apart by the darkness, a seven-colored shadow suddenly appeared. Another huge seven-colored seashell appeared in the shadow like the sky. Before the five-colored seashell finished speaking, it covered Xiaohua. Ah? Xiaohua was shocked. He activated his spiritual power and lightning surged out from the surface of his body. His whole body turned illusory and immediately teleported to the distance. The seven-colored shadow and the seven-colored seashell also appeared in a flash and disappeared into the void. Within 1,000 miles, except for Xiaohua's disappearance, everything was no different from a few breaths ago. Even the night wind that had just calmed down was still blowing leisurely. Who? Wen Chu and the others were shocked. Their divine senses swept over quickly, but it was only a moment before Feng Wu's face changed greatly, because he couldn't perceive any special changes within 1,000 miles. Moreover, their perception of Xiaohua's space had completely disappeared. Chapter 4389. Ancestor? The five-colored sea god seashell cried out in disbelief when he saw the huge seven-colored shell disappear in a flash and the human Grand Ascension Stage cultivator who was talking to him a moment ago. Damn it! Hearing the five-colored sea god seashell's cry, the celestial being was enraged and was about to charge at the five-colored sea god seashell. Feng Wu hurriedly shouted, "Fellow celestial being, don't worry my ass," the celestial being shouted back. "Fellow Taoist Xiao is already gone. How can I not worry?" Buzz. Just then, 36 bolts of lightning shot into the sky. The 36 scattered nascent souls all activated the power of lightning and spread out, surrounding the entire space. Boom, boom, boom. With 3 explosions, huge pillars of starlight and moonlight fell. The five-colored sea god shell, the flying feather void beast, and the golden-winged great Peng were covered in fierce flames again. The situation that had just calmed down became tense again because of the appearance of the seven-colored shell and Xiaohua's disappearance. In particular, the expressions of the 3 great saints of the demon race changed again. The golden-winged great Peng looked around warily, and the golden light in his eyes flickered slightly. He already understood that the ancestor was only interested in Xiaohua and didn't put the celestial being, Feng Wu, and the others into the space. The 3 of them were still at a disadvantage. Moreover, the ancestor hadn't asked about the 1,000 demons' sacred realm for a long time. Even if the demon race and the demon race were to fight, she wouldn't intervene. Therefore, he couldn't hope for the ancestor to intervene. However, if Xiaohua didn't appear and give the order, the celestial being and Feng Wu wouldn't let him go. He could only fight to the death today. The golden-winged great Peng understood, so how could the flying feather void beast not understand? He also turned his eyes and looked at the Feng Wu, the celestial being, and the scattered nascent souls. Finally, his gaze fell on the Feng Wu. Ah, so it's the ancestor here. The golden-winged great Peng sighed and looked at the five-colored sea god seashell. Only now do I understand why Bai Qing was so bold. The five-colored sea god seashell understood the meaning of the song and put away his doubts. He smiled bitterly and said, "That's right. This saint truly did not expect that all of this was the ancestors' arrangement." Feng Wu understood what the three great saints of the demon race were thinking. He smiled coldly, looked at the five-colored seashell, and asked flatly, "Since this is the will of your ancestor, what is your decision?" There was no need for the five-colored sea god seashell to speak. The stars around the golden-winged great Peng flashed as he said, "Since it's the ancestor's will, it's also the will of the thousand demons' sacred realm. We won't disobey." See. When Chu heard and unconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air, he suddenly understood. That day, before Namo Maitreya Buddha achieved fruition in the Great Snow Mountain, the colorful shellfish demon once said that he had a backer. According to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Maitreya, even Mahavarakana Buddha was not willing to provoke his backer. Previously, whether it was Xiao Hua or the other doppelgangers, they all thought that it was the great sage of the demon clan from the five-colored sea god shell. But in fact, that was not the case at all. It was the seven-colored sea god shell that was much more powerful than the five-colored sea god shell. Alright. Feng Wu's eyes widened as he shouted, "Since that's the case, then I won't waste my breath on you. If Taoist Master Xiao can survive, then there's no need for any grievances between us. Everything from before can be forgotten. What if the human Grand Ascension Stage cultivator can't survive?" The five-colored sea god shell asked in a worried voice. Hee. When Chu smiled coldly and replied, "Then there's no need for you to return to the great holy palace. And for the next 100,000 years, there won't be a great sage in the thousand demons' sacred realm." "How dare you!" The golden-winged great Peng was furious and flapped his wings, about to activate the power of the stars again. Cough cough. The flying feather Ni Kong coughed slightly and glanced at the golden-winged great Peng, then turned to Feng Wu with a smile and asked, "I am the third great sage of the great holy palace, flying feather Ni Kong. How should I address the seventh great sage?" Feng Wu looked at the flying feather Ni Kong for a long while before replying, "I'm the heaven-defying lightning phoenix." Heaven-defying? The flying feather void beast was a little surprised. It then extended its sharp claws and gave a thumbs up like a human. It praised, as expected of the phoenix sage who has close ties with the human race. "Even your name is so arrogant." This sage is impressed. "I wouldn't dare." Feng Wu shook her head. "I can't compare myself to Sage Ni, Sage Peng, and Sage Bei." "Ha!" The flying feather Ni Kong beast laughed and looked up at the stars in the distance. Who would have thought that 4 of the 7 great sages of the great holy palace would be gathered in this tiny Bai Qingyu? If the arcane Pentaceratops, vermilion flame vermilion bird, and nether dragon spider come, then all 7 great sages are gathered. Feng Wu just listened quietly and didn't say anything. The flying feather void beast didn't seem to need Feng Wu to say anything. It continued, "Even though the great holy hall originally had 6 saints, other than Saint Bei, the other 5 saints didn't have any foundation. According to what I know, before the other 5 great sages became great sages, they all received the favor of our ancestors." "I see." Shock flashed through Feng Wu's eyes. The flying feather Ni Kong beast's words were very clear. The ancestor of the rainbow shell wasn't just the ancestor of the 5-colored seashell, but also the ancestor of all the great sages of the great holy palace. Feng Wu and the others didn't think that there would be such a transcendent existence in the thousand demons' sacred realm. She wasn't a great sage, but she was stronger than a great sage. Of course, she was someone that even the Vairocana revered one didn't want to provoke. If that's the case? When Chu's voice was as cold as ice. "Then fellow Immortal Xiao is most likely dead?" "That's right," the golden-winged great Peng shouted. "The human Grand Ascension Stage is definitely no match for our ancestor." "Very well," the celestial being laughed. "Then we'll sacrifice you to fellow Taoist Xiao." Not necessarily. Before the golden-winged great Peng could speak, the five-colored seashell hurriedly said, "The ancestor hasn't asked about the thousand demons' sacred realm for hundreds of thousands of years. There must be a reason for her to act today. Moreover, this matter must be related to Bai Qingyu." Nonsense. Daoist sorcerer was also a bit anxious. Isn't she the one who caused all of this? The problem is, the five-colored seashell was very troubled. This sage doesn't know why our ancestors suddenly interfered with Bai Qingyu's matter. Moreover, she personally appeared in front of Bai Qingyu. Damn it, this sage doesn't know either. The golden-winged great Peng shouted. This sage only received a message from Zhang Yutian, who knew that this was all arranged by our ancestor. The five-colored seashell released its origin will. After taking a look, it smiled bitterly. Bai Qingyu has been eliminated by the human race. Bai Qing and the other two demon kings have also been captured by Daoist Xiao. Who should we ask? Where's Sage and I? Feng Wu turned to look at the flying feather and Kong beast, whose figure flickered like a star in the night sky. Hee hee. The flying feather and Kong beast chuckled a bit awkwardly. This sage knows that Quan wants to expand his power on the hidden Immortal continent. He also reported that if this matter didn't involve the Immortal Palace, this sage wouldn't care at all. After all, they're suppressing a fifth-grade origin force human. As for Bai Qingyu and Sky Obscuring Ridge, they seem to be interrogating this human for two pieces of information. As for what information, Quan doesn't know at all. Bai Qing and Peng Jun are tight-lipped. He can't get any information out of them at all. Information? What information? Wen Chu also looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. After all, the seven-colored seashell incident happened before the doppelgangers regained consciousness. Xiaohua didn't tell these doppelgangers at all. Daoist sorcerer nodded. No matter what information it is, since they're interrogating him, it must be what our ancestor wants. That's right. The five-colored sea god seashell was rather perplexed as well. That's why I'm curious. Why are you insisting on interrogating this grand ascension stage being? They don't seem to know each other. There's no way a human grand ascension stage cultivator would want to know something that our ancestor has to know. Furthermore, from the fact that Bai Qingyu has been suppressing that human great sage's substitute for several hundred years, it seems that our ancestor values this information greatly. She doesn't dare to use any extreme methods at all costs. Daoist sorcerer, the heavenly being, Wen Chu, and Feng Wu exchanged a glance. They were well aware that Xiaohua most likely had more secrets than all of the secrets in the three continents. It was very likely that he really did know what their ancestor wanted to know. That's good too. The flying feather void beast smiled. Since our ancestor values this information greatly, she won't harm that human grand ascension stage cultivator so easily. As long as the human grand ascension stage cultivator tells her the information, he'll be able to escape safely. The golden-winged great Peng nodded. Since our ancestor can't bear to harm that human grand ascension stage cultivator and only suppressed him for several hundred years. At this point, the golden-winged great Peng subconsciously paused. That's right. Since the old ancestor allowed Bai Qingyu to suppress the little white dragon for several hundred years, how long would she be able to suppress Xiaohua if he didn't speak up? Indeed, Sage Peng is right. Whoever started the trouble should end it. Wen Chu also waved a hand. Fellow immortals, surround the three great sages first. If fellow immortal Xiao doesn't come out, we'll wait here for another day. If fellow immortal Xiao doesn't come out for 10,000 years, we'll wait here for 10,000 years. Damn it, damn it. The golden-winged great Ping knew that he had said something wrong, and he roared, "Humans, I only respect your close relationship with Phoenix Sage of the demon race, and I don't want to cause any trouble. Don't think that I'm afraid of you." Without waiting for the golden-winged great Peng to finish speaking, rumble. The 36 scattered nascent souls formed hand seals in unison. Like the cries of 10,000 horses, thunder was born in the entire night sky, and similarly, it uniformly covered the space of 10,000 miles. Chapter 4390. Damn it. The flying feather void beast was very sensitive to spatial fluctuations, and he could already sense the order and solemnity of the lightning and he couldn't help but curse, "Why are these 36 Grand Ascension Stage human beings acting like a single person? How did they do it?" In that case, even an ordinary spell would be amplified by close to 100 times the power of 36 Grand Ascension Stage beings at the same time. Even if I were to reach the pinnacle of power, I wouldn't be able to deal with them. It seemed that they were about to draw their swords again. Boom! Thousands of miles away, another seven-colored light flashed out from an unknown space like a rainbow. Xiaohua could sense that something had happened again upon seeing this burst of rainbow light, as well as an aura that he was no match for. He immediately activated his magic power and teleported away without any hesitation. Xiaohua heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the spatial light had already passed through the layers of space within a few breaths of time. However, before he could calm down, he saw that the distorted light and shadows were instantly covered by the seven-colored halo. Moreover, the space around Xiaohua had clearly sunk. Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly activated the lightning around him, and the power of his domain crazily expanded in all directions. His domain had only expanded by a few hundred miles when Xiaohua saw a seven-colored dome of heaven descend from the sky. At the same time, a vast seven-colored land also emerged from the ground, sealing him in a seven-colored space in an instant. However, the seven-colored space was unusually quiet. There was no chi of heaven and earth or great spirit. Only seven-colored light threads were floating leisurely all over the place. Xiaohua's spiritual sense couldn't extend very far, and as his gaze fell upon the threads of light, countless illusionary realms appeared, as if each of the threads of light was a small world of its own. Xiaohua's heart jolted upon seeing this, and lightning erupted all over his body as he flew toward a certain direction. Rumble! Lightning filled the entire sky. Xiaohua flew for a long while, but he was unable to see the edge of the rainbow light, and nothing around him had changed. Seeing this, Xiaohua simply stopped and waved his hand, wanting to take out the wishful staff. However, where Xiaohua's mind fell, there was no trace of anyone in the space behind his head. Hiss, how is this possible? Xiaohua was shocked, and he hurriedly checked his surroundings, but there was no trace of space at all. Is this an illusion? Xiaohua immediately thought of his encounter with the vast freedom heavenly devil in the ruins. Immediately afterward, Xiaohua hurriedly pulled out a yin-yang bracelet and scanned it with his spiritual sense. As expected, this yin-yang bracelet couldn't be opened either. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed as he put the yin-yang bracelet away, then pulled out the Tingjiao shears. Previously, he had used the Tingjiao shears to attack the golden rock, and didn't have time to put it away, but now he could use it. Shua! Xiaohua activated his magic power, and the soaring dragon scissors transformed into a dragon shape and swung in the air, immediately cutting the seven-colored light strands in half. Moreover, these light strands didn't instantly fuse, but instead slowly turned into two light strands and drifted down. Xiaohua frowned again and thought to himself, if this isn't an illusion, then this must be the location of a seal, but this seal is too powerful. No, it's not a seal, it should be a space similar to the five-colored sea god shell. It's the rainbow seashell. In this space, it must have isolated my space. Damn it, if that's really the case, then this rainbow seashell is rainbow. Oh, I understand now. The cause and effect is actually here. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's thoughts suddenly became clear. He knew a lot, and what Wenchu could think of, he could also think of. He even thought of Fairy Jing and the jade eyes he gave her. If that's the case, then this rainbow seashell is the backer that the five-colored great demon of the Great Snow Mountain was talking about. It's a great sage among great sages that even Mahavairakana doesn't want to provoke. And he's the mastermind behind the suppression of Little White Dragon. As for the main culprit, it's the jade eyes I gave Fairy Jing. The rainbow seashell inside must have an extremely close relationship with this rainbow seashell, or else he wouldn't have been able to suppress Little White Dragon for 200 years. Poor Little White Dragon. Back then, I didn't know that Fairy Jing was so heartless. When she saw that she couldn't have a deep relationship with me, she immediately drank the emotion-forgetting water. I didn't have time to get the jade eyes back, so I've implicated little white dragon. However, this rainbow seashell can actually change the god's statue with a human body and a snake tail. It must be related to me, Shang Huaming. How can I just give it to someone else so casually? Of course, it's also possible that the rainbow conch and rainbow ocean shell are closely related to me. When he thought up to here, Xiaohua had a plan in his heart, and he stopped moving and looked around. There might be many cultivators like Xiaohua on the Dawn Rain continent and the Three Continents, but it was rare to see someone as affectionate as Xiaohua. Ever since Xiaohua recovered part of his memories and returned to the cultivation world from the Divine Land, he already knew that he was Zhang Xiaohua. However, he couldn't forget that Xiao Hongyue had adopted him and the care and concern of Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xinrui, so he never changed his name. He even changed his Dharma name to Taoist Xiao to commemorate the time between Xiao Hongyue and Yellow Flower Ridge. Now that he saw a senior who might be related to Shang Huaming, how could Xiaohua not be serious? After Xiaohua looked around and saw no trace of him, he bowed and said, Shang Huaming's junior disciple greets senior? The seven-colored light that filled the sky instantly froze. In the distant horizon, a seven-colored full moon suddenly appeared, illuminating the entire space. However, there was no difference whether it shone brightly or not. Near Xiaohua, there was nothing but emptiness and seven colors, nothing else. The seven-colored full moon appeared in front of Xiaohua in a flash. When the brilliance faded, a beautiful woman appeared from the full moon. The woman was completely naked, and her skin was also seven-colored. The seven colors flowed slowly on the mysterious lines of the woman. Other than an indescribable feeling, there was only holiness left. Two extreme feelings appeared on her body at the same time. If any human saw this, they would be dumbfounded. They would be drowned in her beauty and suffocate. You are Shang Huaming's disciple? The woman's voice was like the sound of nature, and seemed to be more attractive than her beauty. What does Shang Huaming look like now? Although Xiaohua was respectful, he did not relax. He was still on guard. When he bowed, he had already seen the woman's physical appearance. However, he also understood that this woman was a demon. The so-called human form was just a piece of clothing in her eyes. In the eyes of the human race, etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame were the accessories on the clothes. This woman might like the beauty of the clothes, but how would she know if the accessories were good, pleasing to the eye, or even in accordance with the rules? Since the woman did not care about her physical appearance, Xiaohua naturally could not take it to heart. Appearance was emptiness, and emptiness was appearance. Xiaohua was not unaware of this. Hearing the woman ask about Shang Huaming, he hurriedly replied, Senior, please no. This junior does not know if the Shang Huaming you speak of is the same as the Shang Huaming I speak of. However, this junior does not know much about Shang Huaming's current situation. The Shang Huaming I know is naturally not the Shang Huaming you know. The woman sighed. Her gaze seemed to be able to see through space. She said, How many years has it been? How could there not be any changes? Yes, this junior understands. Xiaohua's heart trembled, and he hurriedly replied. Since you know Shang Huaming, you should know my intentions, right? The woman went straight to the point. Xiaohua nodded and said, This junior roughly understands what senior is thinking, but I wonder if it is related to the jade eyes? Hearing Xiaohua mention the jade eyes, the woman's figure could not help but tremble. Her seven-colored body dissipated like an illusion, and a few breaths later, it reappeared. The seven colors of the entire seven-colored space vibrated at the same time. Clearly, the woman was very excited, and this excitement could not be suppressed. The woman nodded. Her seven-colored eyes, which were like the deep sea, were suffused with incomparable splendor. She opened her mouth and said, The 200 years of farce can finally end today. Are you the real Xiaohua? This junior. Xiaohua admitted, it was this junior who gave the jade eyes to Fairy Jing. The woman still nodded. Since she knew that Xiaohua was already in the space, the woman's expression calmed down. After a while, she asked, The image in the jade eyes? Where did you see it? Senior, are you talking about the seven-colored conch? Xiao Hua saw that the woman did not point it out. It seemed that she still did not trust him, so he simply explained the matter. Yes. The woman's voice clearly trembled again. Clearly, she was extremely concerned about the seven-colored conch. She did not hide this concern, and she was not even afraid of Xiao Hua seeing through it. Xiao Hua, of course, would not directly admit that the seven-colored conch was in his hands. He slightly smiled and said, "If Senior has any questions, this junior will definitely answer them. However, if possible, can Senior first tell me about the relationship between Senior and the seven-colored conch?" The woman's tone was cold, and she indifferently replied, "Little guy, some things can be heard, and some things can't be heard." Senior is right. Xiao Hua did not show any weakness and replied, "Some people can be trusted, and some people can't be trusted. This junior cannot casually leak the information about Senior Hua Ming to others." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, the seven-colored silk covering the skies suddenly went crazy. The space within 100 li around Xiao Hua suddenly contracted, and then all the seven-colored silk condensed into a tentacle-like thing that passed through the space and fell between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Gotcha! The domain around Xiao Hua collapsed under the tentacle, and the seven-colored silk fiercely pounced over like a python. Chapter 4391. Rumble. Xiao Hua didn't hold back. Green seal text appeared between his eyebrows. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled, protecting his body. The seven-colored light cracked under the lightning attack, unable to get within 100 miles of Xiao Hua. Damn it! The woman's voice sounded. The entire sky immediately darkened, as if a storm was about to come. On the other hand, Xiao Hua's expression didn't change. As he circulated his magic power, spiraling petals appeared between the lightning bolts. Wherever these petals passed, the collapsed space rapidly healed. It was only as he spoke that the space that had been destroyed by the woman was restored. Senior. Xiao Hua's voice sounded. On the 3 continents, the highest level of strength is the upper 9th level of origin energy. Since Senior's sealed space is on the 3 continents, it can't exceed this law. Moreover, the information about the seven-colored conch is probably only known by Junior in the entire world. Senior, please reconsider. Are you threatening me? The woman's voice was very sharp. Clearly, she was already somewhat angry. Then, Xiao Hua saw that several hundred li away from him, a seven-colored brilliance flashed. Then, 2 figures appeared in the brilliance. The woman coldly said, "Unfortunately, you don't have the qualifications to threaten me." Little White? Seeing the human figure that looked exactly like him in the light, Xiao Hua finally understood. Little White Dragon was sucked into the space by this woman. No wonder he couldn't detect it. However, looking at the beautiful woman beside Little White Dragon, whose belly was slightly bulging, Xiao Hua was confused. "Do you see? This is your substitute. He was suppressed under the fire pillar for you for more than 200 years. Although I don't know what your relationship with him is, seeing that not only do you look similar to him, even your aura and soul are similar, don't tell me that you don't know him." The woman coldly laughed and said. Xiao Hua didn't deny it. He nodded and said, "He's called Little White. He's a python that transformed into a dragon. He's Junior's brother in tribulation. Junior can't not recognize him." "That's right," the woman said with a smile. "Since you're his brother in tribulation, you should know why I took him out." Xiao Hua faintly smiled and said, "If it were someone else who said this Junior would probably compromise and lower his head for Little White's life. But when facing Senior, Junior doesn't think it's a good idea for Senior to threaten Junior with Xiao Bai's life." The young woman was surprised. Since Xiao Hua was willing to lead 200,000 Fortune Gate disciples to rescue the Little White Dragon, it was natural that he attached great importance to the Little White Dragon. Moreover, just a moment ago, Xiao Hua had already admitted that the Little White Dragon in his hand was his brother in tribulation. How could he possibly disregard the Little White Dragon's life? "It's simple," Xiao Hua replied. "This Junior's brother has an extremely good relationship with my Shang Huaming Senior. It can be said that they have gone through life and death together. If Senior injures this Junior's brother, Junior doesn't know how Senior will explain it to Senior from Shang Huaming." Damn it! When the woman heard this, she couldn't help but fly into a rage. Light flashed, and the two figures within the light woke up. Darling Xiao, darling Xiao. The woman opened her eyes and looked around blankly. She exclaimed, Where is this? Your grandmother, how would I know where this is? The little white dragon also looked around and cursed, Wasn't this all arranged by you? How come you didn't know? This concubine was afraid that you would be killed by my father. That's why I saved you. The woman was naturally Bai Bo. She pulled the little white dragon's hand, and a demonic cloud appeared below her. She flew in a certain direction. The little white dragon seemed to be injured, so he didn't circulate his dragon chi and only flew with Bai Bo. Unfortunately, Bai Bo flew straight for a while, but her figure didn't change at all. Her voice sounded again, That's not right, this doesn't seem to be me by Qingyu. What an idiot! The little white dragon scolded. He struggled to move his body and looked around. His eyes were filled with illusions, so how could he distinguish the direction? He only casually pointed, and the two of them flew again. After flying for a while, the little white dragon asked, You said that there are already many human cultivators around by Qingyu who came to save me? That's right, darling Xiao. Bai Bo nodded and said, Bai Qingyu's front sent a message that there are several groups of cultivators coming to save you. However, their strength is too weak. At most, they are at the lower 5th grade essence force. They can't even compare to my demon general, so how could they save you? Your grandmother, your father is so heartless. The little white dragon said fiercely, He's using me as bait. That's right. Bai Bo looked like a little bird that was dependent on a man. She said in a low voice, That day, I heard my father discussing with the Demon King of Shrouding Sky Ridge and the Demon King of Ancient Bell Mountain to kill you today to show his might. I was scared, so I mustered up my courage to steal you out. You didn't dare to make a move for more than 100 years. For no reason, why did you have the guts today? The little white dragon pinched Bai Bo's chest and said with a pout, Weren't you in no danger in the past? Bai Bo laughed delicately and said, Don't think I don't know your tricks. When you were refining that fire pillar, although you shouted fiercely, you were actually using that demon fire to cultivate. Although it was painful, it was useful for your cultivation. Umph. The little white dragon snorted in annoyance. Bai Bo panicked and said hurriedly, Darling Xiao, I never told my father about this. None of them knew. Little white dragon answered casually, and Jade Wave's face immediately turned for the better. She looked around and said, Moreover, this concubine wants you to know that this concubine is devoted to you. Unlike that slut who betrayed you and even tricked you. Pa! Without waiting for Bai Bo to finish speaking, the little white dragon slapped Bai Bo's face and scolded, You're not allowed to slander others. How many times have I told you, I don't know her at all? If you don't know her, how could she possibly give up her life to save you? Although Bai Bo felt wronged, her small mouth flattened. In the end, she still didn't cry and said stubbornly, I want you to see that I can also sacrifice everything for you. For you, I can also. All right, no need to say any more. The little white dragon touched Bai Bo's face lovingly and said, That woman and I don't know each other at all. The one she knows is the human race's Xiao Hua. Oh, are you still in pain? It doesn't hurt anymore. Bai Bo put her face on the little white dragon's hand and said in a low voice, That day, other than being jealous, I was also shocked. I didn't think that loving someone could actually love to that extent. So when I heard that you were in danger, I really couldn't help it. Besides, I can't let our child be born without a father, right? Ah? The little white dragon almost jumped up when he heard that. He cried out in surprise, What? Our child? Where is it? Where is it? Bai Bo stroked her stomach loftily and said with a smile, Naturally, it's in my stomach. Speaking up to hear, Bai Bo glanced at the little white dragon and said coquettishly, You still have the cheek to say that. My servant girl also has your flesh and blood. If not for the sake of that flesh and blood, I would have killed her long ago. Damn it, is that true? The little white dragon looked at Bai Bo in disbelief and then carefully placed his hand on her stomach, touching it again and again. After a while, the little white dragon opened his mouth again and said, "Wife, there seems to be a mountain peak in front. Why don't you hide there first?" But when Bai Bo heard that the little white dragon was concerned about her, she was overjoyed and hurriedly agreed. However, she had just said one word when she came back to her senses and said anxiously, "Darling Xiao, I'm going." "You, what are you going to do? Could it be that you're going to find that slut?" "Oh, don't worry. I've already made arrangements for her. After this period of time, I'll let her leave by Jianghu." "Wife." The little white dragon reached out to touch Bai Bo's slightly bulging stomach and said word by word, "Your husband is a man. Previously, I didn't know that there were human cultivators coming to save your husband, so your husband escaped far away. But now, your husband knows that they came to save your husband. How can your husband stay out of it? Your husband must return to Bai Jianghu and tell them that your husband has already escaped danger. I even have to tell them that your husband isn't the Xiaohua they want to save. And maybe the real Xiaohua is also among them. How can your husband let Xiaohua go to his death?" But Bai Bo grabbed the little white dragon's hand and cried, "Darling Xiao, if you go back, you definitely won't be able to return alive." "I know." The little white dragon used his other hand to pat Bai Bo's cheek and said lovingly, "But your husband is a man. A man should face life and death directly. He must not be a coward. Wife also doesn't wish for our flesh and blood to talk about today's matter after descending to the world. Tell him that your husband became a deserter, right? Let a group of human cultivators sacrifice themselves for your husband, right? Your wife would rather not tell him than tell him your heroic story on the day of your death." Bai Bo didn't let go of the little white dragon's arm and said with gritted teeth, "Your wife only wants to see you every day, regardless of whether you are a man or not. Your grandmother, why can't you make sense?" The little white dragon said exasperatedly, "Laozi doesn't only have you as a woman. Laozi is from the dragon race. Human race, demon race, sea race, and so on, there are plenty of women, no matter how many you have." The little white dragon was wrong. Bai Bo was from the demon race, not the human race. Why would she care about this? Bai Bo shouted, "I want you all. I won't let you go back." Boom. Just as Bai Bo was shouting, several soul strands came out from the little white dragon's glabella and landed on Bai Bo's forehead. Bai Bo closed her eyes and fainted. The little white dragon kissed Bai Bo's cheek tenderly and flew with her for a moment. Looking at his actions, it seemed like he hid her in the cave and then flew out himself. Of course, just as the little white dragon flew out, an illusion flashed in front of his eyes and he also lay down in the light. Chapter 4392. Xiaohua was slightly shocked to see the 5th and 6th grade elemental energy dragons and shell elemental energy being toyed with by the woman. He looked at the woman. That woman said indifferently, "Do you see? If you don't agree, this brother of yours will die because of you. Do you want everyone who loves and cares about you to leave you one by one?" "Who is that woman?" Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a sharp light. His eyes were already turning red as he looked at that woman and asked coldly, "Actually, you already know in your heart. Why are you still asking me?" That woman smiled coldly. Xiaohua naturally had a premonition that the woman the little white dragon was talking about should be Fairy Jing. Now that he heard the woman's confirmation, his heart couldn't help but ache. He really didn't expect that the snobbish woman in his heart would die to save him. Could it be that she didn't only have herself in her heart? Could it be that she wasn't as selfish as he thought? "Does your heart ache?" The woman asked indifferently. "If you don't want your heart to ache, it's better to say what you know. If you say it, no one will get hurt because of you. If this junior says it, this junior's brother might not be in danger, but my Shanghuaming senior might die because of this." Xiaohua still shook his head and said, "Moreover, this junior will definitely not let that woman die for no reason." The woman was furious again. You really think I don't dare to do it? Moreover, you massacred my Bai Jianghu, killed nearly 1,000,000 of my demons, and ruined many of my children? Could it be that this isn't worth that woman of yours?" "That's right." Xiaohua clenched his teeth and said, "Suppress my body and kill my old friend. I will definitely kill Bai Qingyu, demon monarch Bai Qingyu." Damn it. The woman was infuriated. Bai Qingyu has already been killed by you, yet you are still so arrogant. Alright, I will kill this little evil dragon right now. Seeing that the woman was really going to kill the little white dragon, Xiaohua hesitated for a moment. Holding back the grief in his heart, he clenched his teeth and said, "Killing Bai Qingyu and revealing the location of the rainbow conch are two different things now. I've made it clear that the rainbow conch seems to be closely related to me, Shang Huaming. If I'm not mistaken, he should be my senior. Therefore, I can't leave his life in the hands of others, and I can't tell anyone about him." "I understand." At this moment, the woman also understood. Seeing Xiaohua take half a step back, she nodded and said, "You're right, this matter definitely cannot be known by outsiders. However, I'm not an outsider. If possible, this junior is all ears." Xiaohua's face sank as he asked faintly, "Actually, this junior has also heard it. Senior doesn't seem to know about Shang Huaming's. Not bad." The woman didn't conceal anything and replied, "I've never heard of Shang Huaming in the 3 continents. I don't even know how he's related to Shang Huaming." "Yes, Shang Huaming is such a small place. If not for someone close to him, no one would know about him." Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and didn't point out where Shang Huaming was. The woman was silent for a moment before speaking again. "Do you know the Red Sea domain?" Speaking of the Red Sea domain, the woman's tone fluctuated again, as if she was wiping away a long time ago. Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. However, after thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, "This junior has just stepped into the Thousand Demons' sacred realm and came to Bai Qingyu. I'm not familiar with the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, so I don't know about the Red Sea domain." "Hehe, the Red Sea domain isn't a place in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm." "The realm?" The woman smiled and explained. Hearing the woman's words, Xiaohua was shocked again. He originally thought that the woman would talk about the 10,000 demons realm. Who knew that the Red Sea domain would appear? Xiaohua replied cautiously again, "Forgive this junior for being ignorant. This junior only knows about the 3 continents and the 10,000 demons realm. I don't know about the Red Sea domain." "Well, it's normal that you don't know about it." The woman's tone was filled with vicissitudes. Her indescribably beautiful face was filled with worry. "In the 3 continents, I'm afraid that other than me and that rainbow conch you saw earlier, no one else knows about that place. What a beautiful place it is. The entire realm is filled with serene blue seawater. Every day, the Red Sea domain rises from the seawater, and every night, there are endless stars that appear. The stars seem to be embedded in the seawater, and every one of them emits bright starlight. Under the starlight, countless members of the shell race are either cultivating, playing the zither, singing, or talking about love. The Red Sea domain is like the eyes of the sea god. Every day, it hangs in the seawater, watering the growth of the shell race with gentle love. There's no fighting, no killing, no competitiveness. Every ray of sunlight is filled with lazy longing, and every strand of seawater is filled with longing. Only when the Red Sea domain descends south, that broken halo will melancholy rise in the hearts of the shell race." At this point, when the woman heard this, tears appeared in her eyes. They were crystal clear, and rolled down her face that could be broken with a flick of a finger. There was actually a 7-colored rainbow, and it was truly charming. The woman's eyes slowly transformed. One was like a rainbow, and the other was like a star. It took the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Xiaohua didn't dare to disturb her, and only stood there quietly. "My name is Bei Xian." When the woman's eyes reappeared, Xiaohua heard her speak in an exceptionally clear voice. "It's from the Red Sea region. My true body, I believe you've heard of it and guessed that it is the rainbow sea god shell. The one you saw earlier is my lover, the rainbow sea god shell. His name is Bei Ming." See. Although Xiaohua had heard the woman's words before, and his heart was somewhat prepared, when the woman named Bei Xian, personally admitted that she was the rainbow sea god shell's lover, Xiaohua couldn't help but take a deep breath. In his mind, he couldn't help but call out the equally beautiful and noble appearance of the 10,000 Demon Realms Empress Xian Wan. Bei Xian didn't pay attention to Xiao Hua's strange state and continued. Unfortunately, even 1,000,000 years of happiness is short-lived. Once the calamity comes, everything can only turn into memories. The human race of the hidden immortal continent had written many stories, and many of them were the same as what happened in the Red Sea domain. Experts from other realms attacked and broke the peace of the Red Sea domain. The Red Sea god of the Red Sea domain led the Shell race to protect their homeland with their lives, and fought against the invaders. But the invaders of the Sea race were too powerful. The Shell race's shells were tough, and their bodies were weak and delicate. They were no match for the Sea race. In just 1,000 years, the Red Sea domain turned into a blood domain. Everywhere was filled with blood and savagery. When Bei Ming and I were fighting against the Sea race, we suddenly encountered a spatial fissure, and luckily escaped from the massacre of the Sea race. But in the turbulent flow of space, I was separated from him again. I relied on the hardness of my shell to avoid being killed by the spatial fissure, and drifted to the 3 continents, but I don't know where he went. From then on, he turned into a mark, and only existed in my memory. Although I knew that this was a strange realm, I always hoped that he could wander there like me. So I left behind an order for my descendants. As long as there was a 7-colored brilliance, whether it was the human race, the sea race, the monster race, or the spirit race, they had to report it to me immediately. But over the years, I was disappointed again, and in the end, I was on the verge of despair. Until about 200 years ago, a jade eyes appeared in front of me by chance. At this point, Bei Xian raised her head to look at Xiao Hua and asked, "I've said enough, whether you believe me or not. Anyway, I won't kill you. His information is too important, so important that I don't dare to let go of any opportunity. As for your substitute, I'd rather suppress him until he's old than search his soul, unless it's the moment of his death. Of course, if you don't say anything, I definitely won't let you go." Bei Xian's tone was so resolute, more eternal than the stars in the sky. Xiao Hua was very moved. What was the difference between this kind of stubbornness and Xue Xue's loneliness in the dark side of space? What was the difference between this and the stone statue's protection, or even longer? Xiao Hua really couldn't find any reason to refuse this pitiful Bei Xian. Even if Bei Xian's actions really hurt him, Xiao Hua even felt that if Xian Yan and Bei Xian appeared in front of him at the same time, he would very likely give Bei Ming to Bei Xian. Of course, fortunately, this kind of situation didn't happen. Moreover, Xiao Hua couldn't be sure that Bei Ming was the Ming Hua that Xian Yan spoke of. Although the 2 legendary existences both had the word Ming in their names. Xiao Hua sighed. Senior's deep yearning, this junior can empathize with it. This junior also has a loved one, but we can't meet. This junior is willing to tell senior where I saw this senior. Ok? Bei Xian's voice trembled. Where is he? Before saying this junior has a small request. After all, this involved the life and death of the rainbow conch. Xiao Hua was just too careless. He still wanted to verify the truth of Bei Xian's words. Bei Xian clearly misunderstood Xiao Hua's meaning. She said with some displeasure, "Human, don't worry. As long as you tell me where Bei Ming is, I can give you anything you want in the 1,000 Beast Sacred Realm. I can even help you cultivate to the highest realm in the 3 continents." Senior misunderstands. Xiao Hua said with a smile, "This matter involves Senior Bei Ming's life and death. This junior doesn't dare to be careless. If Senior can show me the image of the sea god, perhaps this junior will be more at ease." "How dare you?" Bei Xian lightly reprimanded, causing the entire rainbow space to shake. "The image of the sea god is actually that of a mortal like you." At this point, Bei Xian stopped. She seemed to think for a moment and nodded. "I understand what you mean." With that, Bei Xian didn't seem to do anything. The rainbow light in front of Xiao Hua boiled violently like flames soaring into the sky. The image of the sea god proudly flew out from the flames. The upper body of this image was that of a woman, with a thin waist and full breasts. Her 2 hands were placed in front of her chest, and her 10 fingers formed a seal. As for the lower body, from the waist down, it wasn't the legs of an ordinary person, but a snake tail. Wasn't it exactly the same as Shang Huaming's god statue? Chapter 4393. Seeing this, Xiaohua no longer had any doubts. He bowed and said, "Junior has seen it." "Thank you, Senior." Once the image of the sea god appeared, Bei Xian didn't dare to stand in the air. She lowered her head slightly and landed below the image of the sea god. Hearing Xiaohua's words, she respectfully raised her hand. The image of the sea god turned into a sky full of fireflies and slowly disappeared. "Do you believe me now?" Bei Xian asked faintly. "Yes." Xiaohua nodded. Junior has no more objections. Although Junior doesn't know if Senior and Senior Bei Ming are really lovers, but there is some relationship after all. Junior has decided to take a gamble. You don't believe this?" Bei Xian was really speechless. "You are too careful. It's just a trace of Bei Ming. Why do you have to be so careful?" According to Xiaohua's previous thoughts, no matter what the rainbow conch was, as long as he reached the 10,000 demon realm, he would immediately throw it to a place and ignore it. As for the life and death of the rainbow conch, it was not something he was willing to care about. Since he met Bei Xian today, this Bei Xian was obviously related to the rainbow conch. And if there was no accident, her words should be true. After all, this was the 1,000 demons sacred realm, not the Dawn Rain continent. Bei Xian couldn't know about the corner of the Dawn Rain continent's yellow flower ridge, let alone the god's statue hidden in his space. Of course, it couldn't be ruled out that Bei Xian and the rainbow conch were enemies. After she obtained the rainbow conch, she immediately killed it. This was also the reason why Xiaohua wanted to take a gamble. This junior met Senior Bei Ming in an extremely secretive place. Xiaohua thought for a moment and explained, "And Junior only knows that this place is in the West Sea. As for where it is, Junior can't find it." "No matter." Bei Xian smiled. "You just need to tell me the approximate location of the West Sea and I can find it." "Actually," Xiaohua hesitated and said, "after Junior left, Senior Bei Ming was no longer there. There is no meaning in Senior going there." "What do you mean by that?" Bei Xian was stunned for a moment. However, after a few breaths, she suddenly froze. The entire space was dead silent. There was not a trace of sound. Then the entire space shook violently. Countless seven-colored flowers bloomed uncontrollably. Bei Xian's stuttering voice resounded throughout the entire space. "You mean your body?" Happiness had come too suddenly. Even Bei Xian, a true supreme expert of the 1,000 demons sacred realm, could not help but lose her composure. Xiaohua took a small detour. This was the effect he wanted. Looking at Bei Xian's ecstasy, his previous doubts had completely disappeared. Xiaohua smiled and said, "I'll let Senior know. What Senior wants, the rainbow conch is actually on Junior. Junior can give it to Senior at any time." Woo! The rain of light fell like tears, wetting the space, wetting Xiaohua's domain, and also wetting Bei Xian's heart. The entire world trembled in this rain of light, just like Bei Xian's choked heart. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Bei Xian stopped trembling. She said softly, Where is he?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, Junior has placed the rainbow conch in the Kunlun Immortal realm. The Kunlun mirror cannot be opened in Senior's domain. Give me the Kunlun mirror. I have a way." Bei Xian said without hesitation. Xiaohua was even more embarrassed. He smiled and said, "This Kunlun mirror is Junior's natal magic treasure. I'm afraid it's not easy to give it to Senior." Bei Xian's expression changed slightly when she heard this. "Senior, don't misunderstand." Xiaohua hurriedly explained, "Senior only needs to open this domain, and Junior can take out the rainbow conch." "You can't give me the Kunlun mirror?" Bei Xian asked again. Xiaohua frowned slightly. After a moment, he smiled and said, "Senior, please rest assured. Junior is a man of his words. Once I promise, I will definitely do it. Moreover, with Senior's ability, how can Junior escape? Besides, Junior can find such a powerful backer like Senior." Junior won't find trouble for himself for no reason. Bei Xian'er nodded and said proudly, "You don't dare. Not to mention the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, even if it's the hidden immortal continent or the pure land world. As long as I want, I can kill you no matter where you hide." Xiaohua said with a smile, "Junior won't be so ungrateful and overestimate himself." While speaking, Bei Xian'er's figure flashed and turned into thousands of seven-colored halos. Then, the seven-colored world in front of Xiaohua suddenly opened. Amidst the soaring brilliance, the dazzling starry sky appeared above his head again. As soon as Xiaohua's aura appeared, Wen Chu and the others immediately sensed the location of the space. The tension immediately disappeared without a trace. Wen Chu said happily, "Fellow immortal Xiao?" The rainbow sea god Shell and the other two great sages also said happily, "Ancestor." Unfortunately, before they finished speaking, Xiaohua's voice transmitted to Wen Chu, the celestial being, Taoist sorcerer, and Feng Wu. The four of them couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Wen Chu, Taoist sorcerer, and Feng Wu didn't move. The celestial being took advantage of the three great sages looking at the soaring seven-colored halos to enter the space with the 36 scattered nascent souls. "You don't have to come over. Xiaohua and I have something important to do." Bei Xian'er's voice sounded very majestic in the distance. At the same time, a seven-colored halo rose in front of the great sages. Not only did it block the three great sages, but it also separated Wen Chu, Feng Wu, Taoist sorcerer from Xiaohua. Yes, the three great sages of the demon clan didn't dare to disobey the order. They responded in a low voice and still stood in midair. Wen Chu and the other two also stood in midair and didn't seem to be on guard. "Senior, please wait a moment." Xiaohua smiled and put his hand into his pocket. But at this moment, Xiaohua stopped again and said with a smile, "By the way, Senior, can you let Junior's brother out first? Junior is really worried about his injury." Bei Xian'er seemed a little unhappy, but she didn't say anything. In the light and shadow, the figures of Little White Dragon and Jade Wave appeared. What's going on?" The five-colored sea god Shell was stunned all of a sudden. He looked at Jade Wave in disbelief. He could understand why Bei Xian'er took Little White Dragon away, but he didn't know why Bei Xian'er also took Jade Wave away. However, before he could say more, Xiaohua had already taken out the space from his pocket. Looking at the Kunlun mirror, Bei Xian'er's eyes suddenly became fiery. She stared at the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua didn't panic. First, he urged his spiritual power. The mirror flashed with brilliance, and Little White Dragon and Jade Wave were taken in. Seeing Xiaohua shamelessly take Jade Wave away, the five-colored sea god Shell wanted to say something again. But at this moment, a brilliance rushed out of the space, and a seven-colored conch immediately appeared from the brilliance. Whoosh! As soon as the seven-colored conch appeared, without waiting for Xiaohua to raise his hand to take it, a seven-colored tentacle appeared out of thin air and immediately imprisoned the area within 100 miles. After a gust of wind swept past, the seven-colored conch disappeared without a trace. "Ha!" Xiaohua said with a smile. "Senior is really a little impatient, ouch?" Before Xiaohua could finish his words, the voice stopped abruptly. But just like before, under the torn earth, another seven-colored light and shadow suddenly appeared. Bei Xian'er's huge seven-colored shell appeared in the light and shadow like the sky. Beyond the expectations of the three great saints of the demon clan, it covered Xiaohua again. At this moment, Xiaohua didn't use his spiritual power to teleport at all. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, and the corner of his mouth carried a trace of a smile, as if everything was within his calculations. Just as the seven-colored shell covered Xiaohua in a flash, Xiaohua's mind rolled, and he pulled Celestial, Shi, and Hui out of the space. As the seven-colored space descended, it enveloped all of them. In the blink of an eye, it mysteriously disappeared in front of the 6th 9th grade elemental energy experts. The golden-winged Great Peng's brain wasn't enough. He looked at the night sky, then at the five-colored sea god Shell, and asked curiously, "Shell Saint, what is the ancestor doing?" The five-colored sea god Shell was also puzzled. He hesitated for a moment, then replied, "It seems that the ancestor and Taoist Xiao still have some things to discuss?" As the five-colored sea god Xiao spoke, it looked at Wen Chu and Feng Wu. What about those ninth-grade essence energy spirit bodies? Where is that three-headed, six-armed celestial? At this moment, the golden-winged Great Pring suddenly realized that the 36th tribulation scattered nascent souls had disappeared, and the celestial skeleton had also disappeared. Feng Wu indifferently replied, "Peng Saint, Bei Saint, Nai Saint, although this is the first time we've met, this saint also belongs to the Great Sage Hall, so this saint wants to hear more about the Great Sage Hall. I wonder if the three of you can enlighten me?" Oh. The flying feather void beast immediately understood Feng Wu's meaning. He originally wanted to say something, but when he saw Feng Wu's confident appearance and thought of Feng Wu's previous threat, he rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Of course. However, before this saint talks about the Great Sage Hall, I wonder where in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm does Phoenix Saint think the Great Sage Hall is located?" Feng Wu asked with interest. Hearing Ni Saint's words, it seems that the Great Sage Hall isn't in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm? How does Phoenix Saint know? The golden-winged Great Pring tactfully joined in the discussion about the Great Sage Hall, although the five-colored sea god Seashell was a little concerned and had no intention of participating in the so-called discussion. He also knew in his heart that not only was Feng Wu a seven-star great saint, whose future potential far exceeded that of a great saint like himself, but even Wen Chu and Taoist which weren't people that he could kill today. However, if he missed today, his star-concealing lake, Pring Saint's blue moon sky, and Ni Saint's flux forest would all be in the open, while Wen Chu and the other two would be in the dark. If they wanted to go against him, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm would probably never have a day of peace. The saying that there would not be a great sage in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm for the next 100,000 years was definitely not a lie. Therefore, the five-colored sea god Shell only listened from the side and did not leave easily. Chapter 4394. Of course, whether it was the five-colored sea god Shell, the flying feather void beast, the golden-winged great Pang, or Feng Wu, Wen Chu, and Taoist sorcerer, they all paid attention to their surroundings, waiting for the seven-colored light to appear again. However, as they waited, the east was already daybreak. When Xiao Hua saw the seven-colored light appear again, he didn't panic at all. He pulled Tian Ren Hui and Shur out of the space and stood in midair, coldly looking ahead. Huh! Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't teleport and instead sent the three ninth-level essence power cultivators into his space, Bei Xian couldn't help but be shocked. She asked curiously, "Why didn't you escape? Could it be you already knew that I wouldn't let you go?" Xiao Hua, Tian Ren, Hui, and Shur released their domains to protect themselves. On Tian Ren's shoulder, the dream mirage butterfly lay there obediently. Xiao Hua said coldly again, "You think too highly of yourself. You're just a foreign race from the Red Ocean domain that wandered to our three continents. Do you really think you're an ancestor? How could a foreign race know the power of our human race?" The human race is just one of the 10,000 spirits. It's not even comparable to the monster race. How dare you compare to my shell race? When Bei Xian saw that Xiao Hua was trapped in her space again and that the seven-colored conch was already in her hands, she simply withdrew her previous attitude and laughed proudly. However, your human race's self-righteousness is really too powerful. It can be said to be the #1 divine ability in the three continents. When I was in the Red Ocean domain, I never thought that in this world, there would be such a weak spirit seed that actually calls itself the leader of 10,000 spirits. It's really the biggest joke in the world. It's really unimaginably thick skin. Oh, I remember that the human race has a saying called, deceiving one's ears and stealing a bell. Is that what it means? Hearing Bei Xian's carefree mockery, Xiao Hua only rubbed his nose, the corner of his mouth also revealing a mocking smile. There was no other reason. The vastness of this world had long surpassed Xiao Hua and Bei Xian's knowledge. Although Bei Xian's cultivation was far superior to Xiao Hua's, she didn't have Xiao Hua's good fortune. How could she know about the ruins and the primitive continent? Therefore, although her words were somewhat reasonable, they were not completely correct. Xiao Hua also disdained to argue with her. Moreover, Xiaohua also understood that after Bei Xian, obtained the rainbow-colored conch, the greatest burden in her heart had been removed. It was inevitable that she would vent some of her emotions. Perhaps this mockery was her way of venting all the sufferings she encountered in the 3 continents. Deceiving myself? Xiaohua indifferently replied, "Our human race's classical stories are as numerous as the hairs on an ox. Presumably, how could a brainless shellfish like you understand them? Don't think that just because you can take human form, you can compare with us humans. Of course, if your excellency wishes to improve and draw closer to the human race, this Xiao does not mind gifting you a book. First, you will understand what it means to deceive one's ears while stealing a bell. Then, you will understand what it means to have a sense of propriety, justice, integrity, and shame. Finally, you will understand what it means to repay kindness with enmity." Ha! Bei Xian's flirtatious body swayed unlimitedly. In an instant, countless illusions of copulation appeared in front of Xiaohua's eyes. Her voice, which was like lust, resounded throughout the entire 7-colored space. "Little doll, you are really eloquent. However, you are still too young. Do you know what I have seen the most in the vicissitudes of this world? It is nothing more than selfish desires, possession, war, mutual deception." Xiaohua's tone was still indifferent. "Oh." Bei Xian stared blankly for a moment before asking curiously, How did you know?" "There is a saying in Buddhism, if there is Buddha in the heart, all things are Buddha. If there is devil in the heart, all things are devil." Xiaohua coldly replied, "You are the descendant of the Shell race's royal family. You were chased by the Sea race and escaped from the Red Sea domain. All you want is revenge, and your memories are filled with bone-deep hatred. What else can you see? You don't need to say anything, this Xiao knows." "You?" Bei Xian was shocked. She said in shock, How do you know so much? Did he tell you?" As she spoke, the space within 10,000 li around Xiaohua rippled with blue waves that soared into the sky, just like the shock and vigilance in Bei Xian's heart. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to Bei Xian's question. Instead, his eyes flashed with benevolence as he said, "The matters of this world are always impermanent, and they will never change because of your preferences. Whether you like the matters of this world or not, they happen every day. Whether it is love, hatred, affection, or enmity, there are many of them. This Xiao doesn't know what your Shell race thinks, but our human race has always placed love as the #1 priority. This world cannot be without love, nor can it be without warmth. If you place love in your heart and use your eyes to see love, everything in the world will change." "No need to say any more." Bei Xian interrupted Xiaohua. "What you said is very good. You have Buddha in your heart and all things are Buddha. Unfortunately, I have devil in my heart, and all things are devil. Even if you practice the flowery words of a Confucian cultivator to the extreme, you can't change me. I only want to know, how did you know that I am the descendant of a royal family?" "I guessed." Xiaohua saw that his persuasion was unsuccessful, and he sighed in his heart as he replied. Bei Xian frowned and shook her head slightly. "How can I believe that? Could it be that you were sent by the hibernating Sea King? Don't make blind guesses." Xiaohua waved his hand. "This Xiao has nothing to do with the Sea King. This Xiao only guessed from your previous words." "Say it." Bei Xian looked at Xiaohua with interest and said with a smile, "The brains of your human race are really powerful. If what you said is reasonable, I can consider erasing your memories and let you go." "Don't lie to this Xiao." Xiaohua snorted coldly. 200 years ago, you already had the idea of killing me to silence me. How can you change your mind now?" A strange light appeared in Bei Xian's eyes, but she didn't say anything else. "When my human race lies, we always pay attention to 9 sentences of truth and 1 sentence of lie. Your Excellency has been in my 3 continents for so long, you must have learned a lot from my human race. At least this kind of lying has already reached the essence of the human race." Even now, Xiaohua still didn't forget to dig at Bei Xian, trying to anger her. "This Xiao believes that most of what you said earlier is true. After all, you don't have to hide it. However, you lied about your background, but this Xiao was able to tell this lie because this Xiao was born in Shanghuaming. Actually, it's very simple. How can a spatial passage be easy to find? During a great battle, it's possible to bump into a temporary spatial passage, but that's not even a 90% chance of survival. If there were more than one shell race that escaped, this Xiao might still believe it. However, a couple just happened to escape, so how can this Xiao believe it? Since you were able to escape safely, you must have made a foolproof plan. Although I don't know what your shell race is like, this Xiao believes that in times of danger, the bad habit of letting the clan leader, elders, and other higher-ups leave first isn't something that only my human race has. No matter what, the shell race has to let the descendants of the royal family leave first with the pure bloodline of the shell race. Moreover, I also believe that you two aren't the only ones who made such preparations. There must be other shell race members as well. All of you are using different spatial passageways. If I'm not wrong, these spatial passages are either unidirectional or destroyed after being used. As expected, it's just a guess. However, your guesses are more or less correct. Bei Xian nodded. However, this doesn't seem to be the root of your suspicions. That's right. Xiao Hua nodded. Of course, this is just this Xiao's suspicion. There are two things that this Xiao thinks of. Two? So many? Bei Xian was shocked. I thought it was flawless. First of all, Xiao Hua smiled slightly, as if he was facing death calmly. If the ending of the story is that you repay the kindness of a drop of water with a gushing spring, then your words are correct. It fits the identity of a pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks wandering in a different world. However, the real ending is that you repay kindness with enmity. You actually trapped this Xiao in your domain again. This can only mean that you already had the intention to silence me. Why do you treat your benefactor like this? That's because you're afraid that I will reveal your whereabouts. You're being hunted down by others. You two aren't an ordinary shell race couple, but the descendants of the shell race's royal family. You even have the mission of spreading your bloodline in this different world. So when you just left my domain, you already made preparations? These 3 cultivators are your reinforcements? Bei Xian's beautiful face flashed with surprise once again. She raised her eyebrows and asked. That's right. This is only a kind of precaution. This Xiao also hopes that this Xiao's guess is false. However, when the 7-colored brilliance appeared again, this Xiao's heart had already turned cold. Xiao Hua's expression became even colder. This Xiao knows that this Xiao is still wrong. Since you're the descendants of the royal family, no matter if it's the human race or the shell race, your heart and blood are all cold. You only have the royal family's mission in your hearts. The royal family's mission is not necessarily true. Bei Xian shook her head. Protecting your life is the most important thing. I definitely can't let the news of me and Bei Ming leak out. Therefore, you have to die. As she spoke, Bei Xian looked at Tianren, Shi and Qi sighed and said, You didn't pull them in to help you, but to send them to their deaths. Are you that confident? Xiao Hua's expression turned cold. Of course. Bei Xian faintly smiled. The entire space was like spring flowers blooming. This is my big 7-colored brilliance shell world, not your domain. In this shell world I am a god. An unparalleled god. Hee. Xiao Hua's eyes curved like 2 crescent moons. Could it be that you're not curious about the second reason why I guessed your true goal? Bei Xian's expression didn't change at all. However, her lips slightly shrank as if she was lightly biting them with her teeth. After a moment, Bei Xian actually stretched lazily. The bulge in front of her chest proudly rose into the air. Although Xiao Hua knew that this was all an illusion, he couldn't help but feel his mouth go dry. If you're willing to say it, then say it. Bei Xian said with a smile. The more I listen to you, the more I find you interesting. I really can't bear to kill you. Right now, I'm considering whether or not I should keep you here to be happy with me every day. Chapter 4395. Don't. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand. If that's the case, won't that Bei Ming from the Rainbow Conch kill me? He's still a child. How can he be your opponent? Bei Xian smiled like a flower. But it's strange. Why does he look like he's only 20,000 years old? How would I know? Xiao Hua spread his hands, indicating that he knew nothing about this. So you don't have to worry. Bei Xian smiled again. Even if he's able to break away from being a child in a few years, he might not know how to be jealous. Sweat. Xiao Hua thought of Bei Xian's age and couldn't help but feel nauseous. Besides, Bei Xian continued happily, even if he's mature now, he definitely won't be jealous. Because he and I aren't a couple. Ah? Xiao Hua was stunned, but then he understood and nodded. I understand. You saw that Fairy Jing sacrificed her life to save me, so you used the feelings between couples to move me. You're really smart. Bei Xian sighed. That's right. My Red Ocean Domain's shell race doesn't need couples to reproduce. The so-called couples are just a pastime. Bei Ming is just my clan brother. For your clan brother, you've been searching for so long? Xiao Hua asked with a double meaning. Of course, Bei Xian smiled. Although he's my clan brother, we're all descendants of the sea god and have the same bloodline. Besides, whether the Red Ocean Domain still exists or not is another matter. He and I might be the only two descendants of the sea god left in this world. We can be considered a lonely pair. Bei Xian wasn't in a hurry to kill him, and instead seemed to be in a good mood. In particular, she didn't ask him the same questions as before. Instead, she asked him the second reason why he saw through her thoughts. Xiao Hua's heart became more and more confident. He smiled and said, if that's the case, then this Xiao was wrong about you. Kinship actually has a place in your hearts. It's really rare. Although my shell race isn't a human race, we still have flesh and blood. How can we be as cold as you say? Bei Xian was even more determined to keep Xiao Hua here. Naturally, she wasn't in a hurry. Your Excellency, you're not looking for Bei Ming, but for the statue of the sea god, right? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Bei Xian was startled. The entire seven-colored shell world dimmed. How did you know? This is naturally one of the reasons why I was able to guess your true intentions. Xiao Hua said with a smile. If it were an ordinary couple from the Shell clan, how could they carry the statue that represents the dignity of the sea god with them? They probably won't even be able to see it, right? I really admire you. Bei Xian was speechless. Do you have 5 bodies? Xiao Hua asked very happily. Xiao Hua was happy, but Bei Xian was unhappy. She reluctantly shook her chest, blinked her eyes, and said, 3 body is fine, right? 3 bodies? Xiao Hua was a bit confused. However, when he saw Bei Xian's swaying waist, he helplessly retreated and raised his gaze. So, in the eyes of the descendants of the royal clan, there is no kinship. There is only power and responsibility. Xiao Hua said word by word, your goal of sucking me into the 7-colored shell world again, other than to kill me, I'm afraid you also want to interrogate Shang Huaming's whereabouts, interrogate him about the whereabouts of the statue, right? Human race, oh human race. Bei Xian sighed again. I really want to take out your head and see how it grows. Are you a roundworm in my stomach? You even know what I'm thinking? I'm truly speechless. AI. Xiao Hua's tone was abnormally lonely. You're destined to not be able to see what I'm thinking. I'm also destined to not be your roundworm. At this point, Bei Xian couldn't be bothered to say anything more. She said, actually, when you said you saw Bei Ming's true body, my heart skipped a beat. My worries for the past 200 years have finally come true. Because what I need isn't Bei Ming, but that statue of the sea god. That statue contains the inheritance of my Shell clan, and it also contains something necessary for the awakening of my Shell clan's divine body. I don't quite understand how Bei Ming could become a child. But since he's become a child, then the statue of the sea god definitely isn't on him. Then where is the statue of the sea god? I think, since you've seen it, then it must be Shang Huaming. So at first, I wanted to pretend that I knew about Shang Huaming. But later on, I thought that if I knew about Shang Huaming, you would definitely try to test me again. So, I simply admitted that I didn't know about Shanghua Ming and told you everything. But for Bei Ming, why should I be afraid of erasing the memories of your substitute? I could have searched his soul long ago. But for the sake of my Shell clan's only hope, I didn't dare to act rashly. Can you act now? Xiaohua smiled. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find the statue of the sea god? At this point, Xiaohua's expression suddenly froze, revealing a bitter expression. I'm sure you understand. Bei Xian'er smiled. If the statue of the sea god is on you, I only need to kill you. Then wouldn't the statue of the sea god be mine? If the statue of the sea god isn't on you, then it must be on Shanghua Ming. Since I know about Shanghua Ming, then what value do you have? If I kill you, not only can I ensure that my whereabouts aren't leaked, but I can also ensure that the news of the statue of the sea god isn't leaked. Moreover, if you're sent by the Sea Clan, I can even avenge the deaths of my Shell Clan's compatriots. Is this the legendary, killing 3 birds with 1 stone? Alas, looks like you're determined to kill me. Xiaohua said helplessly. Yes. I was originally hesitant, but you're really too smart. Oh, has anyone ever said that you're as meticulous as silk and as sweet as honey? Bei Xian'er suddenly asked. Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. He shook his head slightly and said, No. Isn't Fairy Jing sacrificing her life for you because she loves you so much? Bei Xian'er smiled. I'm also afraid of falling into your evil hands, so I'd better kill you first. Really heartless. Xiaohua stroked his chin and sighed. If you love someone, do you have to let them die? You're really thinking too much. Bei Xian'er pursed her lips and smiled. You should become a ranger. Maybe you'll capture the hearts of many chivalrous women. Looking at Bei Xian'er's smile, how could it be that she was going to kill him? Xiaohua smiled and said, I wonder if this item will be able to capture your heart? As he spoke, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out an object from his bosom and threw it into the air. In the air, the statue of the sea god suddenly emerged from the 7-colored threads of light. Although it was ordinary and lightless, in Bei Xian'er's eyes, Bei Xian'er's complexion changed greatly. Her body trembled and she almost collapsed. She screamed and was about to fall to the ground, but the moment her body transformed, Bei Xian'er suddenly raised her head. Her face was already ferocious. Boom! A thunderous roar exploded from the statue of the sea god, and the surrounding several li were filled with boiling threads of light. However, there were no fragments of the statue. It turned out that the statue of the sea god was just a phantom that Xiaohua waved. Damned humans! Bei Xian'er shouted. Her body suddenly expanded and occupied more than half of the space in an instant. You actually dare to scare me. If I don't kill you today, I swear I'm not human. Ha! Xiaohua laughed and said confidently, if you can't kill me, you don't have to regret it. You're not human at all. Damn it! Bei Xian'er cursed angrily. Xiaohua didn't see any movement from her, but he felt that countless tides began to surge around him. Waves of spatial power several times more ferocious than the collapse of heaven and earth rushed out from the void, violently wanting to tear his body apart. Troublesome. Although Xiaohua laughed, his heart was extremely bitter. He had just returned to the 3 continents, and the first thing he did was to oppose the South Sea Dragon Palace. He encountered the 4 Seas Great Array, faced the 4 Sea Dragon Kings, and fought the 4 Great Dragon Emperors. Now, he had reached the 1,000-beast sacred realm. Not only did he have to fight against the 3 great sages of the demon race, he also had to resist the killing intent of the great sage ancestor in the Great Rainbow Halo Shell world. If he faced this so-called ancestor directly, Xiaohua might have some confidence. However, Xiaohua understood that this Great Rainbow Halo Shell world was constructed by Bei Xian'er's shell. It could be said that it was Bei Xian'er's life boundary. This was different from the 4 Seas Great Array or the Dragon Emperor Great Array of the 4 Seas Dragon Palace. The 4 Seas Great Array required the 4 Great Dragon Emperors as the Eye of the Array, which was activated by the 4 Sea Dragon Kings. In this Great Rainbow Halo Shell world, there was no Eye of the Array. This barrier itself was Bei Xian'er. All the attacks within the barrier could be created with just a thought from Bei Xian'er. Just as she had said earlier, She was the god within this barrier. Even if Xiao Hua had heaven-defying divine abilities, he would still be restricted by her in this barrier. This was also the fundamental reason why Xiao Hua's space couldn't be sensed in this great rainbow halo shell world. Seeing the incomparably valiant power of space attacking him and his domain instantly shattering, Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. He hurriedly urged his magic power and was just about to use a thunderbolt technique. But right at this moment, waves of indescribable fluctuations came from afar. Everywhere these fluctuations passed, all of the spatial energy was erased, and all of the shattered space disappeared. In front of Xiao Hua's eyes was still a seven-colored barrier flickering with light. "Ha!" Bei Xian'er's surprised voice rang out, rippling in the nearby space. "What is this?" As she spoke, a golden tentacle appeared out of thin air and fell on the Celestial's shoulder. Over there, the dream mirage butterfly flapped its wings. Waves of fluctuations were generated, breaking the illusion of the great rainbow halo shell world. "I was lucky." Xiao Hua breathed a sigh of relief. He had previously seen the situation of Little White Dragon and Bai Bo in the illusion, so he knew that the illusion of this great rainbow halo shell world was formidable. Before entering, he had taken out the dream mirage butterfly from the space in advance. He didn't expect that it would really be useful. Otherwise, Bei Xian wouldn't have needed to use any tricks, and Xiao Hua would have fought with himself. Chapter 4396. Get your filthy hands off me, old beggar. In the eyes of the Celestial, Bei Xianer was nothing but a skeleton. He gave a loud cry and stretched out one of his 6 arms, which then transformed into a mountain range and landed on Bei Xianer's tentacle. Immediately, the tentacle crumbled and turned into a blue color with golden threads. "Woo!" The Celestial opened his mouth again, and the blue threads turned into a thin shadow and fell into his mouth. This is... Bei Xianer was taken aback when she saw the blue shadow fly away. But before she could cry out in surprise, the Celestial opened his other mouth again, and another faint blood-red shadow emerged behind the golden threads. "Damn it!" Bei Xianer roared furiously. Boom, 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 boom. The golden threads exploded at the same time, blocking the Celestial's suction force and causing the blood-red shadow to vanish instantly. Boom! Right after the blood-red shadow disappeared, the Celestial's 2 arms stretched out of thin air and landed on the rainbow barrier. "Open!" The Celestial roared furiously. His skinny arms strangely gripped the space, and as he exerted his strength, the space was torn apart like silk. The crack easily expanded and spread toward Bei Xianer, who looked like a god. Bei Xianer snorted coldly. Then, a huge reef emerged like a star, and smashed toward the Celestial like a meteor. The meteor produced a whistling noise, causing the entire space to tremble. It was quite different from the previous strange phenomenon. Another rock falling down. The Celestial sneered. "You are indeed an old beggar. Can't you have any other tricks up your sleeves?" As the Celestial spoke, 3 beams of different colors shot out from his 3 heads and tore apart the rainbow barrier. Then he waved his 6 arms at the same time, smashed the reef, and strode toward Bei Xianer. Reverend Yun threw his head back and let out a long and sonorous roar when he heard the loud noises of breaking the reef. His dragon roar shattered countless rainbow light threads. "Since you dare to provoke I'll show you what I can do." As he spoke, Reverend Yun's dragon body began to sway. Even before he launched the real attack, a boundless golden light flashed out of his dragon body, within which were dragon runes that blotted the sky and the earth as they thrust towards the great rainbow shell world. Wherever the dragon runes passed, they would be devoured, and as Reverend Yun's dragon body stretched for over 1,000 miles, the dragon runes had occupied the entire space within several thousand miles. Then, where did the dragon race come from? How could he be so powerful? Don't tell me there are dragons stronger than the profound armored pentahorn dragon in the 4 seas? Bei Xian was completely dumbfounded. "Old beggar, there's always someone better than you. Don't think that just because you're some ancestor, you're not afraid of being looked down upon by others." Reverend Yun grinned coldly, then opened his mouth and unleashed the heavenly dragon speech magic again. Suddenly, Some natural energies were produced in the shell, which transformed into countless fireballs and flew towards Bei Sienna. Reverend Yun even reached out his golden claws and grabbed at the barrier. Similarly, the barrier was shattered by the dragon claws, and the colorful shadows were fleeing desperately like swimming fishes. Hee. Seeing that Reverend Tianren Yun had made his move, Shi dared not to be careless. The corners of his mouth curved into a cute smile, then he raised a hand and slapped his own head. Boom! Countless streams of fiend energy and fiend flame towered into the sky. The fiend hand and the fiend hand transformed into a huge pitch-black hand that glinted with a blood-red gleam, grabbing at another space. It was like a layer of silk that was spread out in the air, as 100 miles wide spatial folds were pulled up by the huge hand. Amidst the spatial folds, the colorful shadows were twisting like little tadpoles, trying to swim but having no strength to swing their tails. Are you really a fiend? Bei Sienna could not find Shi's true form even though he was inside her own barrier, and she thought he was just an illusory fiend form. But when she saw the extremely pure fiend energy, which was even higher grade than that of ordinary fiends, she could not help but be surprised again. Ha! Shi opened his mouth and let out a very tempting and wild laugh. The sound echoed in the air and shook the seven-colored light. That's right, I'm a fiend. What do you think? Do you like me? Old beggar, do you want to taste something new? I'm a little fresh meat. I don't mind teaching you some new postures. Following this voice, layers of crimson-red devil chi appeared around Shi's body, and within this devil chi, many illusions appeared. In the illusion, there were human beings, spirit creatures, dragons, ocean-kind beings, and even insects, mosquitoes, and flies. Regardless of whether they were human beings or mosquitoes, they were all crazily copulating with each other. Strange auras and desires seeped out from the evil chi. Hee. Bei Sienna smiled. Her voice, which was like the sound of nature, echoed in the entire barrier. So, you like this? Not bad, not bad. Look at your firm muscles. I think I can enjoy it. Of course. Shi answered proudly. His fiend body suddenly expanded, reaching a height of 1,000 miles. The demonic armor and other items that had covered his body earlier were all hidden within his body. The muscles on the surface of his body swam like horned dragons. The masculine lines on his body were exceptionally eye-catching under the pitch-black, night-like seven-colored light. Although Shi's appearance was revealed, it was no longer Xiaohua's appearance. Instead, it was abnormally handsome. He was truly a peerless talent. His eyebrows were filled with a kind of frivolity. That frivolous aura seemed to disperse the entire space. If I wasn't strong, how could I deal with you? If I don't make you wish you were dead, I won't be a fiend. Damn it. Hearing Shi's words, which were even more vulgar than those of a street scoundrel, Bei Sienna, who was the descendant of the Shell clan's royal family, couldn't bear it anymore. With a tsunami-like roar, several vortexes, which were hundreds of miles wide, passed through the space and directly fell on Shi's fiend body. Damn it. Shi saw that the vortexes were filled with the power of space. Inside the vortexes, there were countless seven-colored light threads crazily rotating. His face changed slightly as he cursed. I just said a few words and you're angry? If you don't want me to do it, why are you so naked? Are you showing off your own body? Shi cursed, but his movements weren't slow. With a raise of his hand, the scarlet demonic chi immediately flew out. It also turned into a demonic pillar that was hundreds of miles wide and stabbed towards the vortexes. Buzz buzz. A series of loud rumbling noises came from the vortex. Countless devils within the devil chi intertwined with the seven-colored threads of light, either devouring or tearing at them. The moment the vortex was wiped out, the rumbling noises turned into shameless moans of lust. The devils even took on the appearance of slaughter and charged toward the vortex. Ah! Seeing Shi's methods, Xiaohua laughed loudly. He felt that he had vented his anger. Human. While Xiaohua was laughing, a voice came from behind him. I have to admit that you are the most powerful opponent I have seen in the 3 continents. Is that so? This Xiao is extremely honored. Xiaohua turned around with a smile on his face. He looked at Bei Xian, who was already wearing the seven-colored clothes, and said indifferently, "However, even if you're a hero, once you're in my seven-colored shell world, you can only be a coward." As Bei Xian spoke, her expression suddenly changed and she shouted, "Kill!" Following Bei Xian's shout, 3 more similar shouts came from the nearby space. After the space in front of Qi, Shi, and Celestial was torn apart, 3 figures that looked exactly like Bei Xian appeared. Each of them had a cold expression on their faces. Xiaohua didn't doubt Bei Xian's doppelganger ability in the seven-colored light shell world at all. He pinched his chin with a smile on his face and looked meaningfully at Bei Xian. "What, do you like bears?" Looking at the smile in Xiaohua's eyes, Bei Xian became even angrier. She raised a hand and waved it. An arm as big as a mountain came whistling through the air, accompanied by a rumbling sound like a tsunami. An extremely powerful force of space came rushing over and smashed into the edge of Xiaohua's domain. Boom, boom, boom. Countless lightning threads were shattered, and the domain collapsed. The broken spatial folds rushed toward Xiaohua like a tidal wave. However, Xiaohua did not panic in the face of such a powerful attack, nor did he exert any magic power. Instead, there was a faint smile on his face. When the force of space came within 100 miles of him, he opened his mouth slightly and spat out a wisp of snow-white light. Meanwhile, Reverend Yun was waving his dragon body and exercising the heavenly dragon speech magic. The space of several thousand miles to his left was filled with dragon runes, and the 7-colored light threads were devoured by them. There were even fireballs in the nearby void. Reverend Yun grinned coldly and cried out into the distance, "So this is what the so-called descendants of the Shell clan are capable of." While speaking, Reverend Yun stretched out his 5 claws again and grabbed at the space. Immediately, one spatial crack after another appeared, spreading out in all directions like cracks in glass. Of course, Reverend Yun would not be fooled by this. He waved his dragon tail again and smashed it on the spatial crack. The 7-colored light threads within several thousand miles were shattered, and a series of rumbling noises spread into the depths of the space. Roar! Reverend Yun gave a furious roar. A golden light burst out from his dragon body as he thrust his dragon body once again toward the rumbling noises. Reverend Yun knew that Xiaohua's main purpose of summoning him out of the space was to help him break the great 7-colored shell realm. However, Reverend Yun had also told Xiaohua that the Pangu axe was capable of cutting Bei Xian's shell realm in half. However, Reverend Yun had tried his best to wield the Pangu axe in the South Sea Dragon Palace. How long had it been? Reverend Yun might be able to lift the Pangu axe, but it was absolutely impossible for him to wield it. Otherwise, Reverend Yun would have used the Pangu axe when he entered the Great 7-Colored Shell Realm. Chapter 4397. Xiaohua felt helpless when he saw that. However, he knew very well that although Bei Xian was said to be the master of this shell realm, she was like a god in this barrier. Nevertheless, Xiaohua had his own dimension, and his control of this dimension was not weaker than Bei Xian. Furthermore, Xiaohua understood that the shell realm was different from his own dimension. The shell realm had the effect of Bei Xian's natal shell, and was also the effect of her divine ability. Perhaps he was not Bei Xian's match, but Reverend Yun, Shi, and Celestial might not necessarily be her match. As long as the 4 of them could defeat Bei Xian, they would be able to break through the rainbow light shell world. Of course, as Bei Xian had said, she was omnipotent in this barrier. What she faced with Xiaohua and the others was just an incorporeal body condensed from light threads. In order to defeat her, they had to find her true form, or find the edge of the shell realm, which was the true form of the shell. Therefore, when Reverend Yun saw the void shattered, his dragon body flew towards the depths of the dimension. Although he could not sense the location of Bei Xian's true form, he could still fly to the edge of the dimension with his own overall strength. Kill! Reverend Yun flew for several tens of thousands of miles, and the dimension within the barrier was shattered by his mighty dragon body. When Reverend Yun opened his mouth again and sprayed out another mouthful of dragon breath, trying to extinguish the 7-colored light within a 100 miles radius, a furious cry rang out. Bei Xian'er's illusory figure had once again appeared before Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun grinned coldly as the dragon breath fell towards Bei Xian'er. Bei Xian'er had a serious look in her eyes, but the expression on her face was somewhat contemptuous. She snorted coldly and said, "Boorish fellow." After that, Bei Xian'er raised her hand and waved it in the air. As if she was gently stroking a bronze mirror, a seven-colored barrier measuring several hundred miles in size emerged out of thin air. Inside the seven-colored barrier, countless splashes of water seemed to dance in the sea breeze. Boom! The dragon breath smashed onto the seven-colored barrier and produced a muffled vibration. Under the dragon breath, the barrier quickly dissolved, and streams of seven-colored light exploded in midair. Bei Xian'er was taken aback for a moment, but then she waved both hands again. Woo! The barrier suddenly shattered completely, some of them plunging into the void, some shooting towards Reverend Yun. In just a few breaths of time, the broken pieces of the barrier had completely enveloped Reverend Yun. Combine! Bei Xian'er cried out softly. Immediately, all the broken pieces began to flicker with a bright glow, transforming into a shackle and falling towards Reverend Yun's dragon body. It was a very powerful shackle, as it had completely confined the space within 1,000 miles around Reverend Yun. Even when Reverend Yun unleashed his dragon aura mixed with a golden beam, he could not break the shackle. Boom! Boom! The space within several thousand miles was shaking violently, as if the heaven and earth were closing up. Reverend Yun's body gradually turned stiff, as if he was really going to be imprisoned by Bei Xian. Reverend Yun did not show any sign of panic. He slightly raised his 5 golden claws and grabbed onto the shackle again. As a result, the huge shackle seemed to be held up by a jade pillar, and it was difficult for them to close even a little bit. Immediately after that, the dragon horn on Reverend Yun's forehead shone with a 9-colored brilliance as well. The brilliance was a few times stronger than Bei Xian'er's 7-colored brilliance. Wherever the brilliance passed, the huge shackle would shatter into pieces, sending the broken shackles into the surrounding space. Damn it! In the face of such a formidable dragon, Bei Xian'er looked somewhat powerless. She cursed under her breath and raised her right hand again. Boom! A huge fist flashed and vanished, and after a few breaths of time, it reappeared in front of Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun opened his mouth and shot out a beam of light, which smashed right into the fist. The light beam pierced through the entire fist, causing it to slowly vanish into thin air. However, right at the moment when it disappeared, the fist suddenly flashed again. Taking the opportunity when Reverend Yun raised his head to look at Bei Xian'er, it vanished into the barrier. When it reappeared, it had already landed right next to the golden barrier protecting Reverend Yun's body. Boom! The golden barrier shattered with a loud boom, and the fist hit right onto Reverend Yun's back. Roar! Reverend Yun howled. A few scales on his back were shattered, and streams of dragon blood were oozing out. Haha! Bei Xian'er laughed complacently after her successful attack. The dragons of the 3 continents are indeed tender and adorable. But too bad, before she could finish talking about the victory, Reverend Yun's dragon body, which was twisting painfully, suddenly vanished as well. After that, Bei Xian'er felt a suffocating aura pressing down from the barrier above her head. Who is it? Bei Xian'er was greatly shocked, as she could not think of anyone who could escape from her perception within the barrier. Right when the question came out of her mouth, Reverend Yun's huge dragon tail came smashing down amidst the 7-colored glow of the defensive barrier, smashing right onto her head. How is this possible? Although Bei Xian'er was surprised, she waved her left hand and unleashed another 7-colored barrier, trying to fend off Reverend Yun's attack. But this time, Bei Xian'er would be disappointed. The dragon tail's aura was extremely powerful, and the dragon's breath was as boundless as the sea. The force of its descent was like a hot knife through butter, shattering the barrier in an instant. The dragon's tail didn't even slow down as it struck Bei Xian'er's body. Shwa! Of course, Bei Xian'er's illusory body wasn't destroyed, but the light it emitted was weakened by 40%. Damn it! Bei Xian'er cursed angrily again, as her body suddenly transformed into a shell. After that, The 7 colors on the shell transformed into one huge light wheel after another, producing the sound of a tsunami as they smashed towards Reverend Yun. Buzz, 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 swish, swish, swish. The sound of the tsunami caused the space within a radius of 10,000 kilometers to spin, and the wheel of light collided with it without any pattern. Not good. A strange feeling of dizziness came from Reverend Yun's mind, and he could not even maintain his balance with his huge body, as he was swaying uncontrollably in the air. Shwa! One of the light wheels landed on Reverend Yun's body and cut through one of his scales, as if the indestructible dragon scale had turned into an ordinary beast's skin. Reverend Yun felt a great pain. He opened his mouth and roared furiously, then with a sway of his dragon body, he shot straight up into the sky. After flying for over 100 miles, Reverend Yun raised his head slightly and gave another loud roar. After that, the dragon runes all over his body began to emerge from his skin, transforming into a light screen that rippled across his skin. Meanwhile, the 9-colored halo around his dragon horns began to grow denser, and the soul-shaking dragon pressure was increasing at an incredible rate. Break! As Reverend Yun let out a furious roar that sounded like the language of dragons, the light screen around his body rushed into his dragon horn. The 9-colored halo rippled and brought the light screen out of the dragon horn, transforming into a shadow of a dragon and pouncing towards Bei Xian. The shadow of the dragon was very strange. Not only were there light shadows and ripples in it, but there was also a very strong dragon pressure. Wherever the shadow passed, the spinning space would be restored, and the dizzying sound would disappear amidst the ripples. Even Bei Xian's body was trembling under the pressure of the dragon pressure. The 7-colored halo unleashed by Bei Xian could not stop the shadow of the dragon. It was like countless silkworms were devouring mulberry leaves, and a faint and disorderly noise was heard when the shadow of the dragon landed on Bei Xian's body. Swish, swish, swish. The shadow of Bei Xian's halo grew weaker again. Hee. Reverend Yun laughed insidiously. He gave up on attacking Bei Xian, then controlled his dragon body and flew towards the depths of the space. He knew clearly that Bei Xian would still be waiting for him at the end of the space. As long as he destroyed Bei Xian's shadow again and again, he would be able to force Bei Xian's true form to show up. Sure enough, wherever the dragon body passed, the 7-colored halo would explode. At the end of the 7-colored halo barrier, Bei Xian appeared once again, gnashing her teeth in anger. The battle between the Devis and Bei Xian was different now. Right when the Devis destroyed the reef controlled by Bei Xian and took a step forward to tear the space apart, Bei Xian's body suddenly vanished in a bizarre manner. The heavenly being was stunned for a moment, and then a disdainful smile appeared on all 3 of its heads. After that, it didn't stop and flew in a certain direction. As it flew, its 3 mouths spat out beams of light that destroyed the space in its path. Boom, boom, boom. The collapsed space actually formed the outline of a huge tunnel. Furthermore, the space destroyed by the Devis was different from the space destroyed by Reverend Yun, as the 7-colored light threads could not restore the space. While the Devis' 6 arms were waving, more inexplicable ripples seeped out from the gaps in the void and fell into the broken space, turning it into a chaotic state. Not only were the 7-colored halos devoured by the chaos, even some of the shadows were sucked into it and vanished. Kill. Following a coquettish grumble, Bei Xian once again revealed her figure at the side of the chaotic space. This time, Bei Xian was no longer in her human form. Instead, she looked like a cuttlefish. Her 8 waving tentacles were all covered with sharp spikes. In fact, the spikes even flashed with an exceptionally bright radiance. Bei Xian showed no signs of stopping. Her tentacles, which looked like mountain ranges, danced in the sky and attacked the Devis. The tentacles simply ignored space, and as soon as they whistled through the air, they had already arrived before the Devis. After half a cup of tea's time, Bei Xian suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared. She then reappeared several hundred miles away. Her squid-like body swayed proudly as she laughed. What a boorish fellow! Let's see how long you can last. Boom, boom, boom. The Devis lowered his head to look at the cracks on his body and the pitch-black liquid flowing out from them. Ignoring them, he shot out beams of light again and continued to press toward Bei Xian. With every step he took, the 7-colored halos would be destroyed into chaos. Chapter 4398. Bei Xian's heart was bleeding when she saw another 1,000 miles of space being destroyed by the Celestial. The Great Rainbow Shell Realm was her natal boundary. If Reverend Yun destroyed the space, Bei Xian could repair it. What she lost was just some divine abilities. But the Celestial's attack was devastating. Bei Xian had no way to repair the space destroyed by the Celestial. What was lost was her natal boundary. Although the Great Rainbow Shell Realm looked boundless, it was because of Bei Xian's spatial restriction that Xiao Hua and the others could not sense the boundary. But in fact, the Shell Realm had a boundary, and Bei Xian could not bear to throw away even an inch of space. But in order to kill the Celestial, Bei Xian gritted her teeth and endured it. However, even though 1,000 miles of space had been abandoned, the Celestial was still alive and kicking, without any signs of waiting for death. What? Bei Xian was dumbfounded. She looked at the cracks on the Celestial's body and asked in confusion, You weren't poisoned? Poisoned? The Celestial smiled. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he fell to the ground in midair. Huff! Bei Xian was about to catch her breath when she saw the Celestial raise his head and ask in bewilderment, Is that what you said? Do. Bei Xian felt that she was being teased, and her eyes were filled with hatred. The Celestial stood up in midair and patted his body, as if he had just climbed up from the ground. When his gaze once again landed on the crack, he waved his hand. The pitch-black liquid was wiped away, and the crack also disappeared. The Celestial looked at Bei Xian and said with a cunning smile, My clothes are dirty. I was pestered by you just now, so I didn't have time to clean them. Damn it! What kind of monster is this? Bei Xian could not help but groan. For the first time, she had a trace of doubt about her action of killing Xiao Hua. But she only hesitated for a moment. Once again, a dazzling rainbow halo appeared around Bei Xian. The halo expanded and contracted a few times as if it was breathing, and finally condensed into a huge ring, which fell down towards the Celestial. Not good. Wherever the halo landed, a powerful aura appeared. Everything that came into contact with the halo was sucked into the halo. Even the 7-colored strands of light were killed by the halo. Seeing this, the Celestial was shocked. He opened his mouth and 3 beams of light shot into the sky, hitting the halo. Boom, boom, boom. The light pillars were very powerful. In an instant, they had caused the halo to dim. However, the halo was spinning rapidly and absorbed some of the light pillars. There was no special change in the power of the descending light pillars. The Deva slapped the top of his head, and the power of the Deva's bones erupted like a volcano. The halo couldn't hold on for much longer, and was sent flying hundreds of kilometers into the air, unable to fall back down for the time being. Boom, boom, boom. High up in the sky, 3 more explosions could be heard, and 3 more Bei Xian appeared on the halo. Without any hesitation, the 3 rainbow-colored figures landed on 3 different parts of the light. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And at this time, in the sky near the Celestial, the 7-colored halo condensed into strange demon characters that were several kilometers in size. These demon characters had some blood-red color, and also gave off an indescribable power. Although this power could not block the might of the Deva's bones, it could still somewhat block it. Boom, 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 boom. 4 more explosions could be heard, and 4 more 7-colored Bei Xian landed on the halo. Woo-woo. This time, the huge halo made a powerful whistling sound and fell down on the Celestial. Oh my God! The Celestial was shocked. He waved his 6 arms and hurriedly retreated, trying to avoid the halo. Unfortunately, he had only dodged 1,000 kilometers, but the halo also chased after him for 1,000 kilometers. It fell down aggressively from the top of the Celestial's head to the bottom of his feet. Wherever the halo passed, the Celestial's defense disappeared, and even the illusionary Taoist robe disappeared. The Celestial's true body was revealed. Outside of the golden skin, 30% of the green was mixed with blue and purple. It looked very strange. Wherever the halo passed, the green increased by 10% and the golden color disappeared by a little. The halo also shrank by a little. Damn it! The Celestial's face turned pale, and he hurriedly tried to escape. Woo-woo. Unfortunately, the halo had already landed on the Celestial's body. How could he escape? With a loud explosion, the halo rose from the bottom of the Celestial's feet to the top of his head. Again, the golden color disappeared by a little. What are you doing? The Celestial screamed and fled like a headless fly. The halo crazily swept around the Celestial's body. In the end, the halo disappeared, and the golden color around the Celestial was also gone. His whole body was dyed green, and in this green, blue and purple were spread out like a spider web. The Celestial was now satisfied. He stood in midair and said shyly, "You want to see my body? You should have said so earlier. If you had said so, why would you need to do it? Why don't I just take off my clothes myself?" Puff! Bei Xian's dim body revealed itself in a corner of the void. She opened her mouth and spat out a black beam of 7-colored light. It looked as if she had just coughed up blood. At this point in time, when she looked at the Celestial's expression and his vigorous appearance, Bei Xian knew that she had fallen into his trap again. She had used up so many 7-colored halos formed by her clones, but not only did she fail to destroy the 5 elements items in the Celestial's body, she had even aided him in some kind of divine ability. She had gone for wool but come home shorn. This fellow's skin is tough and his flesh is thick. I'm afraid ordinary means won't work. Looks like I have to resort to my last resort. Bei Xian squinted at the Celestial and thought to herself. Reverend Yun and the Celestial were fighting Bei Xian in 2 different places. Although they had gained a slight upper hand in the battle, their fight was not as fierce as the one between Shi and Bei Xian. Meanwhile, Bei Xian was controlling the 7-colored halos to transform into countless vortexes, trying to kill Shi. However, the vortexes were pierced by countless fiend pillars. It was not a big deal if they only pierced through the vortexes, but when the fiend pillars landed, the halos of the vortexes were shattered, revealing countless fiends in the fiend energies. Inside the halos, there was the image of yin and yang intersecting with each other, and the void was filled with fiend voices. Bei Xian did not know about this before, but when these fiends were born, she finally realized it. Damn it! Bei Xian flew into a rage, and her face turned pink. Immediately after that, countless 7-colored halos burst out from the 1,000 miles space where Shi was again. These halos transformed into sharp thorns, about a few miles long, and thrust toward Shi from all directions. Before these sharp thorns could land, the domain around Shi had already begun to crumble, and the fiends that supported the domain were howling and exploding one after another. Obviously, Bei Xian hated Shi to the core. So it's a rose with thorns. You might even prick this daddy's hand. Shi laughed loudly. His entire demonic body collapsed with a loud bang. Tens of thousands of layers of demonic flames surged out from his body. Numerous demons, whose strength was not inferior to the Devil King's, appeared from within the demonic flames. These demons clustered together and formed a strange demonic array. This demonic array turned into numerous huge demonic runes that pounced in all directions as the blood-red light gushed out. Boom, boom, boom. The sharp thorns fell into the fiend runes, and the halos on the thorns transformed into tens of thousands of light rays that fell into the fiends' bodies. The fiends exploded one by one, creating an enormous power. Amidst the explosions, the fiend energies spread even more wildly, and the 7-colored halos took advantage of this opportunity to penetrate into the depths of the fiend energies. After a while, the fiend energies spread out for tens of thousands of miles, but at the center of the fiend energies, the 7-colored halos also condensed into a 7-edged light shadow. Whoosh! Once the 7-edged light shadow formed, the 7-colored brilliance instantly disappeared. Then, a layer of milky white holy brilliance emerged from the 7-edged light shadow. The moment this brilliance appeared, it transformed into Bei Xian's human form and swept towards the fiend energies in the surroundings, Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Faster than ice meeting boiling water, all the fiend energies were instantly obliterated upon contact with this holy brilliance. No matter how arrogant the devil flames within the fiend energies were, no matter how rampant the fiends were, they were all destroyed. Damn it, what is this? Shur's voice resounded within tens of thousands of miles, and it was as if tens of thousands of fiends were roaring at the same time. Ha! Bei Xian'er's voice was filled with the pride of victory within the fiend energies. You're just a devil sovereign, yet you dare to be so arrogant in front of my seven-colored shell clan? Don't you know that my seven-colored shell clan is born with the ability to restrain the devil race? In just a few words, the fiend energies within 1,000 miles were swept away. However, the holy brilliance within this space had also dimmed by a lot. Since ancient times, there's a saying that when the Tao is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. You're just some insignificant talent, yet you dare to show off in front of this sovereign? Once Shur saw that Bei Xian'er was weakened, he immediately stirred up the fiend energies. Layers of devil flames were like a crimson blood tide as they ferociously pounced towards the holy brilliance that Bei Xian'er had transformed into. Bei Xian'er snorted coldly. Within 1,000 miles of empty space, countless seven-colored strands of light surged in through an indescribable void. Like a myriad of streams returning to their source, they fell into the holy brilliance. Pung. The holy brilliance flourished and once again swept in all directions. Ha! Shur laughed loudly and said, "The ancients often say that those with big breasts have no brains. Damn it, you really don't have brains. Can't you see that this is your father's trick to lure the enemy?" As he spoke, a layer of silvery white luster suddenly appeared within the fiend energies that had been destroyed by the holy brilliance. When the holy brilliance landed on this silvery white luster, it was like a wheat tip piercing through a steel plate, breaking inch by inch. Not only that, after the luster died the fiend energies were like silver snow waves that swept towards Bei Xian'er. That ferocious aura was exactly the same as when Bei Xian'er had destroyed the fiend energies. Chapter 4399. Innate Metal Chi? Bei Xian'er's expression changed and she screamed, "Eh? You're a demon sovereign? How can you have such an innate yang item?" As she spoke, Bei Xian'er's figure flashed and disappeared. However, a moment later, the area covered by the demon chi flashed with a strong silver light, and Bei Xian'er's figure appeared in that area, looking quite miserable. "Haha!" Shur shouted loudly. "If I didn't have this item, how could I be called Shur? Listen to me obediently, and I will make you wish you were dead." Shur laughed arrogantly. The demon chi within 1,000 miles of space turned into his demon body, and he pounced on Bei Xian'er. Bei Xian'er's body was trembling slightly, and the light around her was like a candle in the wind, flickering from time to time. The space within 1,000 miles was once again filled with silvery white demonic chi. Buzz buzz buzz. Bei Xian'er abruptly raised her head. The holy light around her suddenly turned into 7 colors. At the same time, threads of light surged out from the void like a tidal wave and crashed into her body. "You've been fooled." Bei Xian'er chuckled softly. Her entire body transformed into a rainbow-colored hurricane that charged towards the silver-white demonic chi. "Within my great rainbow-colored shell world, as long as you possess the 5 elements, you will be countered by me. Although you are a Xiantian metal object, I can still kill you." Sure enough, wherever the rainbow-colored whirlwind passed, the silver-white devil chi was instantly shattered, and a huge hole was created in the devil chi. Bei Xian'er's body flew freely in the devil chi without any hindrance. Ha ha! Bei Xian'er couldn't help but laugh again. Facing the demon sovereign's innate nemesis, there was always a trace of unease in the bottom of her heart. Now that she saw the demon chi being exterminated, and countless demons being exterminated within the 7-colored brilliance, a sense of satisfaction involuntarily emerged. However, after a few minutes, Bei Xian'er suddenly felt that something was wrong. After the demonic chi was destroyed, the 7-colored strands of light did not appear. Instead, the monstrous blood gradually seeped out from the surroundings. Bei Xian'er felt a bit dizzy even in her own 7-colored shell world. She involuntarily stopped and looked around in confusion. See? Bei Xian couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air because the devil chi at this time was no longer devil chi. It was a mixture of devil flame and devil blood, devil head and blood filth mixed together. Whether it was her eyes or her yuan shen, there was no end to the devil chi. There was also no end to the twisting and turning blood tunnel. Bei Xian had actually fallen into the devil array. Bei Xian was both embarrassed and angry. However, Shi's voice didn't come, as if he was tired of her stubbornness and had abandoned her. Damn it! Bei Xian suddenly had a bad feeling. Her body frantically transformed once again. At this moment, Shi's unhurried voice rang out again, "Little Bei Bei, it's better for you to obediently follow this sovereign." Bei Xian was infuriated. She had been playing hard to get, trying to kill Shi. However, she didn't expect that in the end, she would still fall into his demonic array. Bei Xian's gaze swept across the bloodstains that were ready to move, as well as the devils that were revealed within the bloodstains. These devils, without exception, all had extremely handsome appearances. Bei Xian said, "Other than trapping me, do you have any other motives? Could it be that you didn't feel it?" All the devil heads answered in unison, "Could it be that you didn't know what I was doing outside the devil array?" When Bei Xian heard this, she thought for a moment, and her expression changed greatly. She said in shock, "You wanted to use the opportunity of trapping me to find the location of my real body?" "Ioyo." All the devil heads revealed Shi's arrogant smile, "You can't be so smart. If you are smart, your chest will become smaller." Bei Xian's mouth was bitter. Now that she was trapped in the devil array, not only did she lose contact with the great rainbow halo shell world, she also lost contact with her real body. How could she know what Shi was doing outside the devil array? However, she understood that Shi could have used the demonic formation to trap her long ago, but Shi had been playing hard to get, making her think that she could do it with ease. Thus, she was unprepared to absorb the 7-colored halos from the big 7-colored halos shell world. Moreover, she remembered clearly that just now, in order to kill Shi Yan in one strike, she had contacted her main body and obtained a huge amount of 7-colored halos from her main body. Moreover, she understood that her great rainbow halo shell world should be an invincible existence in the 3 continents, and the only fatal weakness of this invincibility was her weak real body. Since Xiaohua had already fought an intense battle with the 5-colored sea god shellfish, he should know how to defeat Mo Wuji. Since Xiaohua was sucked into the shellfish world, the only way for him to escape without being killed was to find Mo Wuji's main body. Therefore, Bei Xian had already concealed her real body, and she was confident that Xiaohua would not be able to find any trace of her. Unfortunately, Bei Xian had underestimated Xiaohua, and even underestimated the methods of Deva, Shi, and Reverend Yun. After just a few rounds of fighting, Shi had already forced Bei Xian to reveal her real body. Kill. Thinking of this, Bei Xian's body emitted a dazzling light again, and the rainbow halo shell world pierced towards the devil array like a light sword. "Huh, you can't hold it anymore?" Shi laughed and said arrogantly, "That's right. You've been lonely for countless years, countless cold nights, unable to sleep. Now that you've met my real body, it's no wonder that you're eager to make a move." Roar! While speaking, the devil array surged with a sea of blood, rushing towards Bei Xian. Each of the devils opened their bloody mouths, and blood instantly stained the beautiful rainbow halo. Boom! Within the dazzling light, Bei Xian's doppelgangers exploded crazily, instantly destroying the devil array within several hundred miles. However, that was all. Whether it was the dazzling light or the terrifying aura, they rushed into the devil array again, and the blood sea had already drowned them. After a few breaths, the blood sea continued to rush into the inner layer, swallowing the remaining rainbow halo shell world. When all the light disappeared, the huge devil array surged again, and Shi's laughter rang out again. The taste of an old beggar is really not bad. I wonder how her tender little meat is like? Then, the devil array's outer layer flashed with lightning. Not only did it destroy the rainbow halo shell world, but it also surged into the depths of the space. Inside the rainbow halo shell world, there was a very dense devil chi. It had already rushed out of the tunnel of 100 miles, and it was entering the endless rainbow halo shell world. The celestial being Shi and Hui were showing off their power, so how could Xiaohua be weak? Facing Bei Xian'er's tidal wave of attacks, Xiaohua was not nervous at all. Instead, he opened his mouth, and a snow-white brilliance shot out from his mouth, rushing towards the rainbow halo shell world and the broken space. That snow-white brilliance was like a silk thread, and after flying for several zhang, it stopped in the air, and a snow-white ice worm king appeared from the brilliance. This ice worm king seemed to be confused, flapping its transparent wings in the air. After circling for a while, a cold aura gushed out from its body, and it rushed towards the rumbling sound. Boom, boom, boom. The broken space rushed towards the Ice Worm King, but on the surface of the Ice Worm King's body, sharp rays of light shot out, effortlessly blocking the power of space. Even the Ice Worm King's body, which was flapping its wings, was not stopped by this violent force. Behind the broken space was Bei Xian'er's mountain-like arm. Shua! The snow-white color on the Ice Worm King's body suddenly expanded, and the surrounding space was dyed red by this snow-white color. Kacha kacha! Waves of freezing sounds were heard. The broken space was instantly frozen, and the violent power of space also condensed into a vortex of fine lines within the ice. More than once, the snow-colored light touched Bei Xian'er's arm. Although the snow-colored light looked like fireflies, Bei Xian'er's arm clearly paused, as though it had encountered an impenetrable defense. A seven-colored light tide even more vast than the mountain range once again enveloped Bei Xian'er's arm. Unfortunately, no matter how fierce this rainbow halo shell world's light was, once it touched the snow-white brilliance, it immediately froze, and there was no accident at all. Moreover, this condensation was even more fierce than the rainbow halo shell world's light. It directly crashed into Bei Xian'er's arm, and directly rushed towards Bei Xian'er's illusory body. Damn it! What is this? Bei Xian'er turned pale with fright. She was from the Shell clan, and speaking of which, she was also from the Water clan. The Ice Worm King's body was extremely cold, and it was another kind of nemesis of the Water clan. The Ice Worm King had been sleeping in Xiaohua's space for tens of thousands of years, and especially after the separation of yin and yang, its potential was limitless. In an ordinary fight, Xiaohua didn't think of using the Ice Worm King, but now that he saw how powerful the Rainbow Halo Shell world was, he had already taken out the Ice Worm King from the space. The Ice Worm King really didn't disappoint Xiaohua. It really was Bei Xian'er's nemesis. Wherever the Ice Worm King passed, not only was the space frozen, even Bei Xian'er's illusory body was frozen. Damn it! Bei Xian'er naturally knew that Xiaohua wouldn't answer her question, because at this time, Xiaohua was holding his chin and looking at her with a meaningful gaze, as if he would only be satisfied if she was frozen into an ice sculpture. Therefore, Bei Xian'er angrily cursed. She opened her mouth, and a rainbow halo holy light pillar flew out, wanting to block the Ice Worm King in the space. According to Bei Xian'er's thinking, this holy light pillar didn't belong to the 5 elements, so it should be able to block the Ice Worm King. Unfortunately, she was ridiculously wrong. How could Xiaohua's space be ordinary? The holy light pillar was also frozen into an ice pillar by the Ice Worm King. Moreover, the ice pillar condensed at an extremely fast speed, and against the light, it spread towards Bei Xian'er's space.